From the 34, Daniels scans the field, going deep, corner, caught, touchdown LSU, Jaray Jenkins.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Nix rolling with the motion from Franklin, and he puts it on the numbers of his favorite target today.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And a throw for it, flip it in the flat, catch made, send it, leads, touchdown. They snuck the tight end down. What a response by this Wildcat offense.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
DeLauro wants to spin it again. Back to Singer. Oh, what a beauty. A dot for Singer's first touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Hand off Thompson. Again, the dead leg. Thompson! Touchdown, Texas Tech!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Hope you've had a really good day so far. We're midway through the week. It's on a Wednesday. Good afternoon. This is 365 Sports. Paul Catalina in blue, Craig Smoak in navy blue, and I'm in this psychedelic LSD type feel right here. Not that I ever would know what that feel was like back in the day. But good afternoon. Hope you've had a good day. Jack McKenzie in studio. Garrett Ross is back from vacation. Yeah, he's back in the studio today. And there's some TV, streaming, cable decisions to be made, as we know, going forward. Yes, a lot of what we've discussed, a lot of the TV deals and what's going on with the Pac-12 and what they're going to do. Got a couple of interesting notes from someone that views our show and sent me a couple of stories. And in fact, let's start with this. By the way, we will get into the Big 12 and men's basketball because there's a three-way tie at the top after last night's results, and that is part of it. Scott Drew joins us today at 5:10. All right, so here's the first one. Bob Iger. Paul, who is he?
He is the CEO of Disney. He built him into a powerhouse, and then he retired, and they hired a guy named Bob Chapek, and then Bob Chapek got in a fight with Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and then he got moved away, and Bob Iger got brought back in.
So, and again, we appreciate all the feedback because there's so many things that can be complicated, and some of this is something I'm learning more and more about when it comes to streaming. I'll give you this example. On streaming, the only thing I watched that is streaming related, and it was, I don't know how many episodes, 8, is Tulsa King with
Sylvester
Stallone. It was after watching the series on cable, Yellowstone, which is my favorite series, and that's like 8 episodes as well, Costner, etc. Then after that was over, about a 10-minute break, I would then start with the next episode of Tulsa King, and they kind of were able to go simultaneously. I do watch ESPN Plus. Most of the time, if it's an ESPN Plus, it's on my laptop and or obviously my phone. But I don't really view much when it comes to streaming. So that's from my perspective. Craig and Paul, much younger, get it much better. So Bob Iger, in the sports world, executives are beginning to grapple with the rocketing cost of sports rights with similar implications. ESPN is going through some obviously challenging times, and because of that, of what's happened with linear programming. All right, because of what's happened. And I got a note about that here in a minute. The second part of his quote, I've had long conversations with this ESPN's Jimmy Pitaro, who runs ESPN, and we've got some decisions that we have to make coming up, and we're simply going to have to be more selective. Both of you guys, let's talk about this. There was a time, I don't know, like up until 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, where ESPN and all the networks, they were just throwing money at sports. I mean, it was like massive money. Obviously, yes, the NFL, and no, we know a lot about college football, the playoffs, and the NCAA, but money was just everywhere. And we wondered, is there ever going to be a balloon or something? And that's not really happened. But eventually, you just can't spend all the money because it's not always going to be available.
Well, the problem TV's running into, and you kind of broached it there, Smokey, is that different people consume media in different ways now. And there used to be two ways to do it. You either had cable or you didn't. And then when most people got cable, you either got, you paid for different tiers of cable. Well, now there is just a multitude of things available. And if you have something available, you have to put programming on it. So then that creates more competition in the market or necessity for things. And what's happening with ESPN is they're because their subscriptions have gone down, and ESPN Plus hasn't buoyed them as much as I think they thought it would. That people are like, oh, I'll sign up for this because I can watch all my sports. Most people are irritated by ESPN Plus because of its functionality. And so they're in a spot now where, okay, what rights are we going to be buying up? Now, the NBA contract is coming up here soon. There are reports that NBC is going to get in on bidding on that, among other people. If ESPN lets the NBA go, that means that's probably good news for a league like the Pac-12. Or if ESPN decides that the NBA is more important to have than more college athletics, which they already have a ton of, then that's bad news for the Pac-12 because that would be where some of that money would go. But I do think that there's going to be a lot of stuff that ESPN lets go in the next few years and focuses on what really gets your ratings. Now, college football does get ratings for ESPN. The NBA...
Is it about ratings or subscriptions?
Well, I mean, if you have ratings on ESPN, then you already have subscriptions.
Okay.
So you can't get them. If you don't have ESPN, then you don't get it. So those kind of go hand in hand. And things that'll keep the subscriptions up, they'll get those ratings. So college football is probably one of those things. But what else is going to really help you? And they're going to have to make some decisions. Some stuff that we watch on ESPN all the time will probably be gone and off into different spaces. And I don't know if that's good or bad news for the Pac-12. It might be good news because the NBA is much bigger than the Pac-12 would be, but at the end of it, does that help or hurt, or does that just mean they're cutting where they can cut?
There's absolutely zero chance in this world that they would select Pac-12 football over NBA basketball, ESPN in particular. There's no way. I don't care how much of a price discount it is, and the NBA deal that's coming up is going to be in the billions. But I think that the people in charge of these networks have been figuring that now for the last few years in their projections. They've known that was going to go up. Everything else might be going down or going away, but the NBA is only going up. NFL is only going up. So people who are in the business have known for a little while that the NBA price tag was probably going to be pretty hefty when it arrived. So I think they've been planning accordingly. Now, you may ask, well, what does that mean for Turner? Well, Turner's whole identity is NBA basketball, not anything else. No matter what they've tried with the NHL or what have you, we know TNT because of the NBA. And the NBA alone, and you might want to sprinkle in some baseball here, but it's an NBA channel. They're not going to pivot away from that, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, I think the word you said balloon, I think the word you're looking for is bubble.
Bubble is a better word, yes.
There's a streaming bubble because everybody went and spent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to be Netflix or to be better than Netflix, and let's have 100 original TV shows, and let's bring our own studios into the fold, and let's make our own movies, and let's pay hundreds of millions of dollars to well-known actors to create series for us. And, I don't know how many people watch Apple TV. I know people have it. I have it. But I know far less people that have that than most any other thing. And yet I know that Apple TV has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on shows that not a ton of people apparently even watch. And so a lot of studios have just sunk money into creating, and I think they now realize that, one, we are going through a recession. We're not all sitting at home anymore. And so the stuff that made sense 2.5, 3 years ago doesn't make as much sense now. And so I don't know how much the whole streaming giants and they're going to go grab this and grab that. I think everybody's starting to hit the brakes, like Disney, ABC, ESPN. Not necessarily in every area, but yeah, certainly in some areas there are going to be some cutbacks because they just can't all afford to keep spending willy-nilly like they did for such a stretch run. So, yeah, in some areas there's going to have to be, okay, we're not going to spend quite this much money on this particular item. And in the case of college football, it does seem like there's a game of musical chairs going on. And Brett Yormark of the Big 12 went and grabbed a chair about a year early, foreseeing that, hey, one, there's not going to be tons and tons of SEC Big Ten money flowing around for the rest of us. Two, there's only a limited amount of parking spaces left. So we better go grab our parking space while we still have it. And the Pac-12 is now finding out, oh, wow, there's not every dealer, every channel, every network lining up for this remaining amount of college football. Some of them aren't even interested. Like apparently a couple of them today that we found out aren't interested or have ended negotiations. So yeah, there's not quite the marketplace that there was even a year or two ago. And I don't know what that means for the future and all that. I'm not worried about the NBA. I'm not worried about the NFL, SEC, Big Ten, all that. But if you are somebody who's not just that guaranteed eyeball drawer night in, night out, then yeah, you're probably looking at a situation where the money's a little tighter or it's not quite what you thought it might have been 2 years ago when you were projecting out.
Well, and this was something Brett McMurphy, about 3 hours ago, MSN also had this. Paul, you handed this to me. CBS Sports and Turner reportedly back out of Pac-12 media rights negotiations. I got to be honest with you, I thought they already had. I thought it was basically down to ESPN and streaming, but this was a story days after releasing a United statement that expressed confidence in the 10 teams sticking together and ability to find a media rights partner. Brett McMurphy reporting that CBS and Turner are currently no longer involved in the Pac-12's media rights negotiation. Let me reiterate, I already thought they were basically out. Maybe there was still hope there, but I thought they were out, and it comes down to ESPN, how much they want to bite off, and then also whatever they do with streaming. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is good news or bad news for the Pac-12. I mean, it on the surface, it doesn't look good because, that's one less partner. But I don't really know how much CBS was going to be involved in the first place or what they were really going to be involved. Yeah, I'm sure that they were in it. And I'm sure that there was some interest. But when it comes down to it, if you look at CBS's overall football strategy for the last couple of years, it's not been to put on 3 or 4 games. It's been to put on 1 or 2. And that's what they're doing now they're going to have, some Big Ten games there on CBS. So I don't know if because adding another conference into that would kind of change everything that they've been doing for a long time. And CBS, if you look at every network and everything that they've done, CBS is by far the easiest to figure. They're they don't have a lot of shows that get canceled because they know exactly what people like. If they have a show that gets canceled, then they just put NCIS in front of a city, and then they have that show. Sports-wise, they have the NFL, they've got the SEC, and now the Big Ten, swapping those out, and they've got the NCAA basketball tournament, which is partnered with Turner. Streaming is Paramount Plus, and that's what they have. And it's kind of straightforward. So they're the easiest ones to figure. So I just never thought the Pac-12 really fit too much into their plans because it would have been kind of not every week just based on if there's a good Pac-12 game at 3:30 that's a noon kick there, they might have picked it up. But I just don't think that it was ever really working for them.
Yeah, the Pac and CBS, I never considered that to be realistic for some of the reasons Paul's outlining there. I mean, what are you going to throw what kickoff are you going to have on CBS for the late West Coast game? Like, where is that going to fit into the schedule? Like, were they going to play at 10 a.m. for your afternoon game? I mean, it just seems like it would be logistically kind of an issue, and I just don't think there's the drawing power. I mean, what are you signing up for? I mean, I'm not saying, and look, I'm not for Pac-12, Big 12 home. Like, I'm not saying that they would draw well either. I never thought CBS would be that interested in the Big 12. I never thought they'd be that interested in the Pac-12. I think for a brand like that, it's like SEC or Big 10 are probably bust for some of these. And that's part two of these streaming cutbacks is that, Time Warner, for example, they're not really in a position to go spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a property that might not give them a great return on investment. They're losing money, gobs of money. They're cutting people left and right. You're seeing that across the industry. So now's not the time to just go plop, this ridiculous figure in front of just whoever because, it's live sports. I mean, it's live sports is coveted, but it's not that coveted. It's got to make sense eventually. I never really considered CBS or Turner, for that matter, to be all that serious of players. And I think, one other part of this is we have to keep reminding ourselves that USC and UCLA are not a part of this deal. I mean, this is not going to involve them. So now you are looking at, like we always talk about Oregon, Washington. Those are your two biggest brands. And that might sound super appealing to fantasy booker me coming up with what would the coolest tournament look like with college football teams, like Oregon versus, Alabama, but for viewers, is Oregon, Cal pulling you in that big spot that you'd have for Pac-12 football? I don't know that it is, and I don't know that you have a lot of options because, as I believe it was Andrew Marchand or his partner may have mentioned on their podcast, this whole negotiating, it's about one game. This isn't like we'll play 4 of your games all day long. This is about like the prime game that you were going to have for Amazon Prime. I should clarify that. On the Amazon Prime side of things, what Marchand and as partner who
John Alran.
Yeah, Alran were talking about was the Amazon thing's about one game. It's not about we're going to carry the Pac-12 conference and you tune in. Now, maybe it could eventually turn into that, but based on what he was saying, this is like your game of the week is on Amazon, like they do the one game of the week in the NFL. And quite frankly, if you eliminate the LA schools, how attractive is that week after week after week? Oregon, Washington would be great, but beyond that, Oregon, Utah would be cool. But 14 weeks, 15 weeks of that, you're kind of limited all of a sudden. And I think that probably came into play somewhat as well.
All right, so Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, we know that they have secured a couple of his steps, the 3 things that he had when he arrived back in July of last year, took over officially in August, but we know he was already stirring his stew or gumbo, whatever you might want of the pot. Here is an audio clip, and I want to thank R. Webb, who is very he loves the show, and he's very much a college football fan. And R. Webb, I appreciate you sharing this with us. Here is John Alran and his thoughts about Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark.
It's Brett Yormark of the Big 12, and it's Brett Yormark for a couple of reasons. One, you talk to media executives, they're blown away by Yormark and the job that Yormark has done. When he came, the Big 12 was in disarray, and he was able to work out a media deal. He was able to work out a deal to have Texas and Oklahoma leave early and make it actually work for the conference. And the media executives I talked to, all of them mentioned Brett Yormark as somebody who's doing just a really credible job. So I want to make him I'm picking him this week because he engineered that deal to get Oklahoma and Texas to leave a year early. It's an exit fee of around $100 million that they're going to reallocate to all the Big 12 schools. So it's making the Big 12, more financially sound.
All right,
really.
All right, that's again, sorry about the reverberation, but that was audio. R. Webb, again, thank you for that. They have that segment, like Paul has his top 5, Craig has off the radar, and he had the who's up and who's down. And Yormark in 3 weeks, so who knows? Maybe he's down and someone else is up next week when it comes to sports media. And R. Webb, you're way too kind. Thank you. No, we appreciate what you did. Now, so CBS and Turner, there's that report. Brett McMurphy, who joins us quite a bit. I also received this note from someone who watches our show, who lives in the West Coast. This was what he said, and then I got a follow-up with Steve from Ohio. People east of the West Coast need to wake up. I live out here. Streaming is the only way to go with your programming going forward. Everything starts out here and then moves east. Am I wrong in thinking that it used to start in New York City and move west?
Well, I think it's. Yes,
I know L.A. I understand the power of L.A.
Well, look, Los Angeles.
Hollywood.
The Red Sox and Yankees ALCS has to start at 8 p.m. for TVs on the West Coast that aren't watching it. So yeah, I mean, I think it does. Everything does start in L.A. and move east now. And yes, the reason that cord cutting is probably as big of a crisis as it is California is a state that's absolutely doing that. And part of that is because most of the companies that originate, the stream are in California, right? So Apple, Amazon, Netflix, all those companies are in California. So your neighbor, people, if you live in Silicon Valley, you probably know somebody who works there. If you live in this is the best way to do. We can do this, this, and this. Now, it's the same thing as cable when you get down to it, unless you're somebody who's like, look, I'm going to have a basic cable package and I'm going to do Netflix and Disney Plus and nothing else, then you're probably saving money. At the end of it, it's all about the same when it comes down to it. So, yeah, but I think in the West Coast, it's very much more popular than it is in the middle parts of the country.
All right,
Yeah.
he got out here saying, I don't know of anybody who has a satellite, satellite or cable. Nobody watches network news anymore, and they don't watch sports. The Pac-12 knows this, and this is their market. Now, again, that's the streaming option, so there's that one. Steve, then, go ahead.
Nobody watches sports as a pull for me as a network executive if I'm trying to get Pac-12 football on the air. Like, hey, nobody watches sports in the main area that we're trying to pitch here. That's not going to sell me on getting Pac-12 football signed up.
I think he's talking more about satellite and cable, but that's what I thought too.
No, because every time it gets brought up, like I mentioned the random like San Diego State commenter I saw that just made my head spin when he was trying to make an argument for why San Diego State and SMU are like these great additions to the Pac-12, and his argument was fighting with the Big 12 person over the fact that people in San Diego have much better things to do than show up to football games. And it's like, so wait a second. We're talking about brand power and conference power, and you're arguing of it's better to live in San Diego because we have so much to do, we don't have to show up to the games. Well, if we're having a competition of where's the better place to live, congratulations, San Diego would win. If we're talking about, hey, let's fill some freaking college football stadiums and have eyeballs on the product, give me the places where they show up to the games because they're not busy with the beach or whatever's going on.
Well,
this isn't like lifestyle versus football. This is a football viewing conversation for football rights, not who has the best beaches. Like, I don't understand why we keep pivoting to, well, it's 70 degrees all year round. It doesn't matter on Saturday night when you're trying to watch a college football game.
Well,
what is this argument we're having?
You're also leaving out, you said about filling stadiums. That's also about, look, if I'm just going to go to the beach during the day, guess what's not in the ocean? My television.
Yeah.
So it's not there. Now, granted, I could theoretically sit with a phone or an iPad on the beach and watch a game, but then have I not defeated the purpose of going to said beach? So that's not a reasonable argument because you're saying the reason we have other things to do here, well, yeah, that's a problem because you're not either sitting in the stadium or you're not sitting on a couch with a TV in front of you.
All right, now you guys got me all. Okay, I'm going to get this. Great points. Absolutely great points, but it's also kind of fun to look at all this different information from Steve. It's believed Amazon really only wants, as Craig mentioned, one game a week. Best matchup of the weekend. Maybe ESPN would do a Friday, Saturday night game that might be the pull with the Pac-12. Neither entity will overpay for that content. So there's Steve from what his thoughts about from Ohio. Steve, thanks for your email as well.
And to be very clear, I'm not anti-Pac-12. I'm not let's kill the Pac-12, and I don't feel like we need to say that every show.
And we don't need to. You're right.
No, but I know that the way that my comments can come across is like I'm knocking them. It's like, no, I'm knocking the idea of like we have better stuff to do as an argument for why they'll get better TV rights or why they should get TV rights. I just think that's ridiculous, and sometimes you need to step away and realize like the point that you're arguing. But I've seen it so many times now, I feel like you've got to address it somewhat. But yeah, I mean, whether it's a game of the week or it's 2 games a week, I mean, where does that leave the other teams? Where are they playing? Where do we watch their games? Is that, like, I mean, where? If you're just doing, I mean, that's the ESPN
argument,
part.
Isn't that the part that if it's on streaming, they'll find it because they're used to using streaming?
But where is it? If the Amazon's only doing 1 or 2 games, then where are the other games going to be played? On ESPN, I guess, would be the other part of that equation because all the rest of them are seemingly out. But, okay, great. You get your 1 or 2 games a week, and then I would have a question if I was those other 3 to 4 games or in non-conference, you're looking at, a number of different games, 6, 7, 8 other games. I mean, okay, then where do you put those? Are they also on Amazon, or is Amazon looking for the 1 or 2 games a week like you pointed out and like Andrew Marchand pointed out? I mean, that's the concern. It's not so much like, I mean, it is the exposure. And the exposure plays into, okay, you have the game of the week this week, Arizona and Washington State. But where do you find Oregon then? Where are we going to watch Washington? And that's the other part of this equation that probably will be ESPN when all is said and done because it does appear as there's only so many suitors. And I think that this may be a situation where rather than running to the table as quickly as they can to throw hundreds of millions of dollars at a far more known or popular property like the Big Ten or like the SEC, which they trump everybody, including the Big 12, whoever you want to mention as far as the viewers, the promotion, the money involved. I just have a question about how that's all going to be spread out. And, it's puzzling to me. I think that this ultimately results in, instead of people running up to the table to be the first bidders, they're going to sit back and wait, and you're looking at your price tag just going to drop and drop until somebody finally says, all right, that's the value that we're looking for. And then maybe that's when you get your TV deal. But until then, I mean, they're not in a position of power to really say, this is what we want and this is what you're going to give us.
Right. Ryan Nelson, we're going to get to your super chat on the Big 12 and men's basketball here in just a moment. Now, there's that, and then there's this one more nugget. For the first time ever, this is from the Insider Intelligence. For the first time ever, U.S. adults will spend more time this year watching digital video on platforms such as Netflix, TikTok, and YouTube than viewing traditional television, starting where it is going to be right now, where traditional television at some point here in the next few months will be under 3 hours a day, the average viewing, and that digital video, the average daily digital video watching, will be 3 hours and 11 minutes. Now, we're talking 11, 12, 13 minutes, but it's the first time ever that linear, am I right here, that linear will have, the digital will have more viewers per day, hours per day, than regular television or traditional television. Again, that's just notes about what's going on. What does that mean for the Pac-12? I don't know. What does what Steve mean? I don't know. CBS Turner, that's not good. And it's not that we're looking for ways to paint a bad or good picture for the Pac-12. Our job is to feed you information, have our own opinions, bring on guests who do as well, and then also for you to kind of just cultivate it, cherish it, chew it up, and digest it however you want.
I mean, that's very simply explained. Have you ever seen somebody get in that TikTok zone where they just stare at their phone for 3.5 hours watching like 100 different videos because they just can't look away because it's just video, video, video? That's what people are programmed to do now, is just be in this hypnosis of just video after video, and they're all really quick and snappy and cuts everywhere, or just whatever, chaos is going on your screen, and it just loops people in, and they just sit there and stare at their phones, and the next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, whoa, and it's, oh wow, I've been looking at my phone for 2 hours. Instead of sitting on the couch and like, what's on the TV guide? Let's watch Roseanne at 8 o'clock, or whatever your Modern Family or your Sports Center or whatever it is that you watch. Like, yeah, there is far less of that because you can just pick up your phone and watch TV, basically. Whatever that is, whether that's TikTok or Netflix or whatever your choice is, but it's just scrolling Twitter. I mean, I see everybody in every walk of life, if they're not like looking ahead when they're walking, if they're even doing that, they're looking at their phone, no matter what they're doing. So yeah, everybody's locked into their phone far more than they're sitting at home in their living room watching their television set like they used to. I agree with that. The problem is, when you're talking about airing college football games, you're not going to necessarily be taking it in 30-second TikTok videos. Like, you're buying the broadcast. So ultimately, you are going to sit and watch the broadcast. Now, you can argue of like, is the broadcast worth the bite? Or is it maybe more ideal in future years to pay less money and then you make far more money putting out little snippets of games or like little chunks of games? Like, I don't know if that's how it's more consumed in the future, but that's not watching a football game. That's watching clips of football games, and that's where I think there's a major difference in the two platforms.
Your uncle, my oldest brother, Robert, does not watch football live. He waits for the game to be over and then goes to YouTube and watches the condensed version, almost like what we do at 10:30 with CW Channel, where we have 3 hours, and then all of a sudden our four, what we think might be the best, most educational or informative and entertaining segments, and it's in an hour. So there's all of that, and hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks to the 84858, thanks to Steve, thanks to our web for a lot of you feeding us that information. We need to break. Our guest lineup today, Matt Tate, Lawrence Journal World on KU, Baylor and Texas atop the Big 12, and Baylor and KU play Saturday in Lawrence. We'll hear from Dr. Lawrence Skuvanek. He's the president of Texas Tech. He's also the Board of Regents Big 12 chairperson. Scott Drew, 510, John Machota, 530 on the Cowboys in the NFL and Paul's Top 5. Did you have one more thing you wanted to add before we had to
I think
break?
the Pac-12 is going to get – I think the Pac-12 is going to get a TV deal. I just don't know that it's going to be what it was. It's definitely not going to be what was thought originally, and it's not going to be bargained from a position of power, and it might end up being a bargain for some network because ultimately you got to get on TV. And if nobody's going to race up to the table and say, like, here, take all this money, then what's going to happen to that figure? That's just going to keep on getting lower, you would imagine, as time goes by until it's finally like, all right, it's this is where we'll jump on it. So yeah, I mean, where does that figure go, or does it remain where it is? I mean, does somebody surprisingly jump into the mix now, feeling like it's easy to obtain, or is the overall price tag that maybe these schools were looking at going to dip lower and lower per team? How does that affect expansion if you're going to bring it, if the price that you're expecting is going lower, and then you're still talking about adding 2 teams? How is anybody making as much money as they were? And in turn, if you're now making less money and your LA brands are gone, how enticing is that for a brand like an Oregon who maybe might have options, or a Washington or Four Corner schools? Hey guys, you're playing the West Coast, but you're making even less money now and you have less visibility. Isn't this awesome? That's just going to be a really hard sell.
All right, I want to do one thing when we come back, Garrett. I think it's Raider. She wants to have me sit in front of the camera where she's trying to see that there's some sort of hidden meaning with this shirt. Like, is there something that's coming out of this shirt, like words or pictures? Lady Raider, we're going to do that, Katie Raider. We'll do that in a minute, but also get to the Big 12 men's basketball, plus a segment on here's KU, here's Baylor, Texas. They were the 3 favorites to start the year. It's kind of gotten there in different ways. We'll get into that today at 3:45. Thank you already, the chat room. We'll get to the text line, which is always open at 254-339-1122, 365 Sports. Ideal MRI. IdealMRI.com can find 2 things that make your life better. 1, save you money, and I'll get to that in a minute, because the cost of their MRI never changes or never goes up from the original price of $497. It might go down. But the other thing is, let's say you have, like I've had, a lower back problem, or maybe it's something in your shoulder, maybe it's in your neck, and it all might be tied together. Possibly it's your knee, your ankle, whatever a part of your body that is hurting, it's aching, it's tugging, it's stinging, it's just sore and uncomfortable, and your doctor wants an MRI. If you can get to Waco, it's worth the drive, because $497 is the ceiling of how much an MRI will cost you. It can be less. $497 when the average MRI is like $1,100. So do the math. A tank of gas to get here to have an MRI done, state-of-the-art technology, incredible techs and specialists. They make you feel incredibly comfortable. It's not this big, huge room where there's about 40 other people waiting for an MRI. It's you, it's the staff, and maybe someone walking out and someone else walking in. And it's done, and it's professional. It's a great experience when otherwise it can be a little bit anxiety. IdealMRI.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We'll discuss KU, the Big 12 and men's basketball with Matt Tate, who covers KU. And, of course, here they are, right front and center, along with Texas and also Baylor. Earlier, Ryan Nelson, $5 super chat. Ryan, thank you. Three-way tie, likely after great road wins by Kansas and Baylor. I think Baylor and KU go 3-2 to end the season. I think Texas goes 4-1 or 3-2, rides on the trip to TCU. Man, it's incredible. I never would have thought. There was truly a part of me that when Baylor started 0-3, I was like, they got to find a way to get to 9-9 in the conference. And I'm not saying they may not end. They got 5 games, as even Mac Rhodes said yesterday, that will be difficult. Kansas last night just was able to grind it out against Oklahoma State, who had been red hot, to win. Oklahoma, who's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, just had too much for what looks like right now a Kansas State team that is a little bit tired. And again, that's still dangerous. Everybody you play is dangerous. Baylor, KU, and also Texas 9-4. Iowa State and TCU play tonight. Iowa State 7-5, TCU 6-6. Kansas State, Oklahoma State now are 7-6. So Ryan Nelson, thank you for the $5 super chat. And Kansas State had that great start. They were 6-1. They've now lost 6 of their last 7. And it does appear as if they're kind of running out of gas. That doesn't mean they can't get their fuel back. But right now, they're kind of just trying to get to the finish line.
Yeah, they are. And the three-way tie right now makes it super exciting down the stretch. Everybody's pretty much got to play at least one team in that. Nobody's done completely with each other. And there's tough games, road and all that down the stretch. But I think, just looking at Texas, I don't think that they're really going to go anywhere. I mean, yeah, they had the loss the other night, but that just kind of brought them back down to where everybody else is. And then with Kansas, they're playing a lot better lately. They're getting scoring from places they weren't for, seemingly like weeks on end. But like last night, everybody kind of scored, especially Grady Deck, who had a fantastic game. And then And then Baylor's as deep as they've been all year and has their emotional, fired-up center back in Jonathan Chama-Chechua. And so things are going to get wild down the stretch here starting Saturday in Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have some separation this week. I was saying yesterday about maybe it was on the Bearcast about, Baylor being tied for first place and enjoy it while it lasts because it may be over in just a few days because of the way the schedule is lined up. But let me just go this direction to really kind of lay it out there. Texas, games remaining. They got Oklahoma at home, and then they play number 19 at number 9, at number 22, and then number 5 Kansas at home. So 4 straight top 25 games to close the year, although maybe at that point TCU's not in the top 25 any longer. But, Iowa State's kind of hanging on now at this point. But you still got to play Baylor and Kansas, in those final groupings. You also have for Kansas, as far as you look at, their schedule, it's very similar, and Baylor's is very similar as well. But, yeah, Kansas has got Baylor. Obviously, that'll be a huge game that'll tilt one way or the other. Then they got to play TCU on the road again. They got to play West Virginia and Texas Tech, which is a good break for them versus what the others have lined up. And then that's that Texas game there at the end as well. And Baylor at number 5, at number 12, just this week alone. So if they can get through this week, I think we revisit sort of where they are, but they still have to play then Texas after the Kansas trip. At least that'll be at home. Then at OSU, who's playing better, which they're not ranked, but, who the hell knows in this league, right? And then number 19, Iowa State, who, like I just said, is hanging on, but is still a dangerous team, and that's at home.
Who beat the hell out of them to start the year.
But all of them are playing at least 3 ranked teams in these final 5 games, and they're all facing each other in some form or fashion. They're all playing each other. Kansas is playing Texas. Kansas is playing Baylor, vice versa. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Everyone plays each other that's right now tied for first, and that's pretty cool. And, of course, in the conference, even if you weren't playing one of them, so you're going to have to play somebody else. Kansas going into Stillwater against a red-hot and tough Oklahoma State team. That's kind of why they win a lot of Big 12 titles. They win the game they had to. Baylor now goes to Lawrence, as Craig mentioned, and that one will be awesome to watch, you hope. And Scott Drew will discuss that with us coming up at 5:10 today. But right now, KU is hot, and they haven't – it's been rough for them, and we'll have Matt Tate on to discuss the Jayhawks, Harris at guard, and also the injury, the ankles that kind of got a little bit gimpy last night with McCullough and also Harris. How are those? More, what Bill Self has done. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty and his staff can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, and maybe used to be. When I say maybe used to be, as you get older, your testosterone level can drop. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. How do you know? You will know. You could also find out based on getting your blood work, and that's what Dr. Petty and his staff can help you do. They will set up blood work or the appointment. You go get your blood work. They'll take care of all of that. They get the results back from the lab, contact you, and discuss your testosterone levels. And if your testosterone levels are low, really low or slightly low, they have a program to put you in that can help you increase your testosterone levels. Maybe it's as simple as you just kind of feel lethargic and you don't have a lot of energy. Maybe one of those symptoms is you don't sleep quite the way you used to, and that could also be based on your diet and things you do or just things on your mind. And then also there's the sex drive issue, and that could be the problem with low testosterone too. All of the above, and then, of course, you've got a little bit more of a problem. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Kick off 2023 with a bang at Allen Samuels in Waco. During the President's Day sales event, get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $2,000 and 1.9% for 72 months on second and third row options. That's right, 1.9% for 72 months plus rebates. Or how about the 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $3,500 in total values plus an extra $500 to first responders at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We just discussed the Big 12 men's basketball schedule and standings based on what happened last night. Iowa State, TCU tonight, important game. Those two teams are still in the middle of it, but with Kansas, Baylor, and Texas at 9-4, there's been a little separation. We wondered if that would come or when that might come. Matt Tate covers KU basketball in the Big 12 for the Lawrence Journal-World and joins us on 365 Sports. Matt, thank you very much. Why is Kansas where they are compared to where they were maybe a month or so ago?
Well, good question. I mean, I think that the one thing that kind of got them here was the belief that they would get here. You know, there was a lot of talk when they lost 3 in a row about, of course, from the fan base, you know, what the heck's going on? Like Self likes to say, the sky was falling and everybody's freaking out because that just, you know, that's not the standard here. People don't like to watch their team lose 3 in a row, but those guys, the players, the coaches, they believed then 2 things. Number one, that they would sort it out. They'd put in the work. They'd figure it out, and they'd get back on track. And number 2, I think they realized and believed then that the rest of the conference was going to have a stretch like that too. And you've started to see that happen now. You know, K-State's lost 4 or 5. Oklahoma State lost theirs early in their schedule. You know, everybody's kind of had – Texas is on a little bit of a slump right now, right? So I think they believed that they would put themselves together and the rest of the conference would have to deal with what they were dealing with in that moment, just because the conference is so good. So there was no panic. Again, they went to work, and there's a couple of guys on that team that started on last year's national championship team, and they set the standard, and they led by example, and that's, of course, Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris. And, all the young guys, whatever new faces they have, they just grabbed those guys and said, okay, let's go, follow us. And their demeanor stayed even keel, and they just went back to work and believed that they would get it sorted out. So, confidence is a crazy thing, and I think that their confidence was shaken a little, and then they got a lot of it back with their big road win at Kentucky. Kentucky's not a great team. They might not even be a tournament team, but when it's Kansas and Kentucky, the whole world's watching, and that's a game you want to win. They went down there and beat them in their house, and I think that returned a little bit of their swagger, and then it's been, all a good climb since then. They've started to feel better and better about themselves. They've been getting more contributions from their bench. Some of the younger guys are starting to sort of turn the corner finally, and this is a pretty good basketball team right now.
All right, let's get down to it, though. Are McCullough and Harris going to play on Saturday?
Oh, yeah. Good question, no doubt. We asked Kevin that last night in Stillwater, and are you concerned at all about your status for Baylor? And I mean, without even the question being finished, he said, no, I'll be out there for sure. I'm playing, and DeJuan's the same way. They both emerged from the locker room with their ankles taped. One's the left ankle, one's the right ankle, but they were heavily taped. No walking boot, no panic there. They'll get a few days rest, a few days of treatment, round-the-clock treatment. And if people in this area learned anything about ankle injuries, they saw it from Patrick Mahomes the last few weeks, right? That you can still go out and perform. And if he can go do that with a high ankle sprain, I think both of these were probably on the lower part of the ankle, so not nearly as concerning or severe. So the expectation, at least as of last night, is they'll both be out there, and it can affect them. There's no doubt that it could make life harder, and they might not be able to play 100%, or there may be cuts that are difficult or things like that. But it'd be really hard to envision them being kept off the floor. They know what's at stake. They know how big that game is, and they want to play every game. So I would fully expect they'll both be out there.
Matt, at the end of the game against Baylor, that was their third loss. Baylor had started with 3 losses to start the conference, so they've both been something similar. And I remember what Bill Self said in the postgame in Waco. He mentioned that when somebody said, what do? You kind of grind on them a little bit. And maybe in the past he could with a different team, but he said no. We know that this is a marathon. It's a war of attrition. Not the exact quotes, but you were there too. You understand what he was saying, because he could have not lost the team, but had he kind of handled that wrong and launched into a tirade, it could have created even more damage, right?
For sure, and it's it's a sign of the times. There's not a whole lot of room anymore for jumping on guys. It just doesn't always produce the desired outcome. And, there's a time and a place, and don't get me wrong, Bill Self practices can still be pretty intense, and if a kid screws up, he'll let him know. There's no kid gloves or anything like that happening. But I do think the approach was what he was talking about that night, and the approach being that every single night in this conference against every team right now, the way it is constructed, it's hard every year, but this is a whole different animal. In the past, there have been some teams at the bottom that just really couldn't compete, whether they didn't have the horses or they had injuries or coaching was an issue or whatever it was. There were always those spots in the schedule, and that's for everybody, really, where you could see, okay, that's an easy stretch. Well, there's no such thing this year. So I think in the interest of mental health, he was talking that night about, it doesn't do any good to jump on these guys because they've got to keep their minds sharp. They've got to stay positive. They've got to stay, healthy mentally just to get through each one of these games. And so, let's build them up a little bit. Let's go ahead and tell them that things are going to be okay and just stick with it and, encourage them rather than, dog cussing them for losing 3 in a row. It just doesn't do any good. So that was something he talked about, his own approach, changing it that night or moving forward from there. And, I'm sure he has to some degree. They've been giving them more time off too, just because, again, this is an incredible challenge for every team in this conference to be able to get up every single night to play a top 15 team for a lot of stretches, or a top 10 team for a lot of stretches, or at the very least an NCAA tournament team. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that all 10 of these teams could fare well and compete in the NCAA tournament. Doesn't mean they're all 10 going to make it, but we're starting to see that with Texas Tech even, right? They were left for dead, and now they've, put one on K-State and then beat Texas the other night, and they're as good as anybody all of a sudden. So yeah, I think that was the approach he was talking about, was like, let's just keep them, positive and feeling good mentally as much as anything, so that they can answer the call. Because if you beat them down, then the games are just even that much more hard. So there's no need for that. He identified that pretty early on, and obviously it was the right button to push.
This is not their best defensive team that Bill Self has ever had, player for player, but it seems like they're starting to put that together a little bit. Where did that start, and where do they kind of have to keep games so that does not become a problem? Because, again, Bill Self usually builds teams defense first. This is not that team right now.
Correct. Yeah, they don't – I mean, DeJuan Harris is a really good defender. As good as there is in the conference, probably, and Kevin McCullough is one of the best defenders in the country as well. But outside of that, they don't have a bunch of guys on the roster that are terrific individual defenders. And so even with those two guys doing what they do, if you have one guy break down on the other side of it or whatever, it can lead to an easy layup or an easy bucket for your opponent. So I think they've really emphasized the team defense aspect. They've really emphasized energy and being aggressive and trying to get out in transition and turn people over and use their length and their quickness and things like that to make people turn it over before they can get into their stuff. And that helps them not have to worry as much about what they lack inside in terms of true size and experience. And those things have helped a lot. And I think you're right. I mean, this is definitely not one of his best defensive teams, but one of the things that has clicked for them as a unit and on defense as a team is really just pride. I mean, like they got absolutely punked by Iowa State in Ames a couple of weekends ago, and they were embarrassed by that. They didn't look good. They no-showed. There was no energy. They were lethargic. They got home from that game on a Saturday night, and normally lets them go and all right, we'll see you tomorrow. But they were playing Texas 2 nights later, and so rather than letting them go, they met when they got home for about an hour and just talked through some things, and that helped too. I think it was not a chewing out session or anything like that. It was just hey, you guys have to decide right here. This is kind of a crossroads. We just played as bad a game as we've played all year. And if you want that to continue and that to be the direction that this season goes, then do what you did then. But if you want to defend your title and you want to compete, you want to win the conference and all those things, then look yourself in the mirror, change your attitude, change your approach, and see where that can take us. So the pride thing kicked in there. And then again, 2 nights later, they played number 5 Texas at home and really jumped all over them from the jump ball with a lot of energy and a lot of tenacious defense, and they kind of carried that from then. So I think they're getting better defensively. I think they're starting to understand the number one thing that Self always preaches and desires from his teams, which is doesn't matter what happens offensively. That'll come if you play good defense. And one of the keys for him to playing good defense is just make the other team play bad. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be perfect, but make them play worse than you. And what can do that? Energy, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of aggressive approach, and just that pride. And I'm not letting my man get by me. So they've kind of clicked into that lately. And Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, 2 wins in their last 2 games. Those are bottom half teams. I get that, but they were both on the road, and those teams are also capable of beating anybody. So I think they're heading into Saturday feeling really good about where they're at. I know they're excited to be, in position to kind of, go ahead and make a run at this title. And they obviously know they have Baylor left and they have Texas left too. So they'll have something to say about it directly, and they got to take care of business the other nights too. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this one plays out. And you guys talked about the separation. I mean, it is there. It would be surprising to me if somebody other than those three at the top right now ended up winning this conference. But, gosh, the way this season's gone, I don't think you can rule anything out.
Matt, one more thing, and it's not about Kansas, but Kansas State had that great start. We know the great story with Jerome Tang, had the win at home against KU, and then KU got them when they had the return trip a little bit later. Do you watching them as much as you might, or when you saw them, and they're as dangerous now because everybody is in the conference, does it look like they've run out of gas?
That's the perfect way to put it. And that doesn't mean they can't get it back, but I do think that's something that's happening with them right now, and I do think that kind of shows you the difference between a Hall of Famer, a guy like Bill Self, who in the middle of it all figured out, okay, I got to change my approach a little bit. Let's do this, this, and this to give these guys a little mental break. Whereas Jerome Tang, going through it for the first time as a head coach at this level, plenty of experience. He knows what he's doing, and he's done a phenomenal job this season, But those are things you have to learn with time and experience and learn along the way. And so maybe, at this point, maybe he would look back and go, gosh, I wish I would have done that. Maybe giving the guys a little more of a break or whatever, But that's easy to say in hindsight. And so it'll be interesting to see if that's something he picks up now. And I don't know their team, I don't know what makes them tick. So maybe that wouldn't work. Maybe that's what they're doing and it isn't working. I don't know exactly, obviously, but it does kind of lean me to believe that's probably one of the differences right now, is that maybe, a guy like Self's been there, done that, been in this race every year. Whether they won it, they haven't always, but they've won a lot of them. And he knows how to manage this race better than most. And so I think his team's benefiting from that right now.
Matt, thank you very much. We'll see you down the road. Matt Tate, Lawrence Journal-World, covers Kansas basketball and also Kansas athletics, but also a little note at the end about Kansas State. When we come back, a couple of other notes involving college football. What's going on with Notre Dame's offensive coordinator search? And then also on top of that, we will today, Texas Tech president Lawrence Skuvanek. He also is the Big 12 board of the region's spokesperson for the conference. He'll join us. Dr. Skuvanek will join us in about 15 minutes. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, a hidden gem. I was just in there the other day. Bought a bottle of Garrison Brothers from their excellent selection of local craft whiskeys. When I say local, I mean Texas. They have a great selection of craft beers as well. The best on both of those in Central Texas. Speedy service, speedy drive-through window. Excellent selection on everything that they have in the store, and always rotating new things. As a matter of fact, that's why I was in there a little longer than I wanted to be, because there's some new stuff in there. I was just looking and looking and looking and looking, and finally settled on it and got a bottle of Garrison Brothers. So, and I had some last night for Valentine's Day. It was delicious, fantastic. Everything they have there, really, I've never gone wrong with any choice I've made. And if you need help looking for something, say you're getting a gift for somebody that likes a certain type of wine or spirit or beer, they can help you out with that all the way around. And they're available on DoorDash. But I recommend just pop in and see them right there, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody, the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Garrett, thank you for having my mic down because I almost it was a little bit earlier. Thank you, buddy, having my back. Brett McMurphy, and this has been reported as well. Ohio State football has canceled home-and-home series with Washington in 24 and 25. Ohio State said it will abide by the terms of the contract, including any liquidated damages. Now, if you want, you can go, whoa, wait a minute. Why would they do that? Are they about to be a part of the same conference? I don't think that's the case. But especially since they're the ones going to be paying the damages, if this was going to be a Big Ten setup, then obviously they would work this out.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably more to do with the fact that their scheduling is about to get different in the Big Ten in 2024, and it's probably better just to let that go. That's what happened with Texas and Georgia, so people are assuming that, oh, well, you know, but we knew
was it Texas and Georgia or Oklahoma and Georgia?
Oklahoma and Georgia. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oklahoma and Georgia happened, but we already knew in that instance that Oklahoma was leaving. So this isn't a precursor to anything other than I just think that the Big Ten scheduling is about to completely change, and they had to get rid of some non-conference opponents, and Washington was the one, So Ohio State's going to have to pay out a bunch of money, and they've got it, so probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably better explained by the parties involved to know exactly why, and I don't know if they'll actually go out and explain why other than just this announcement, but I'd be curious to kind of know more of the reasons why things like this don't occur, especially when you're about to go into a world where there are more playoff spots. So why would this game hurt you? This game, I mean, like, it could hurt you in that you lose, sure, but, I mean, as we've seen with the high-profile non-conference games, are we now going to start backing away from that because teams are playing this extra conference game? Then we were all entirely wrong about this whole new New Horizon, right? Because the idea is, there's more playoff spots, then you can afford to schedule tougher and you can play tougher teams and not necessarily be penalized as a result of that. So is that a reaction to this new world we're going into? Is that because simply it's a scheduling matter and, hey, they're going to have an extra conference game and so that's one less spot? What were the other options other than that particular opponent? Could you have canceled Coppin State instead? You know what I mean? So that I'd be curious to know the exact detail as to why they did that. But yeah, outside of that, then that's a shame. That seems like it would be a good game. Maybe it'll be a playoff game now at this point.
We will await the call from Texas Tech President Dr. Lawrence Skuvanek. You're here just a minute. What other note? And I knew that Ludwig from Utah had said no to Notre Dame, or at least that had ended because Notre Dame was maybe a little bit uneasy about a buyout. But Notre Dame has been looking for an offensive coordinator, and they still don't have one. Spring drills are not that far around the corner. Paul, anything here of why? Is it obviously they're going after other people that other people want, but Reese goes to Alabama, and based on the response that I saw from Notre Dame fans, they could give a damn.
Yeah.
And yet they can't find somebody right now to replace him.
Yeah. Well, they went almost full out for Andy Ludwig from Utah, but apparently his buyout was too big, which probably is not the best look for them when they're trying to upgrade at that spot. But look, if they didn't want to pay the buyout for Andy Ludwig, they didn't want to pay it. They valued the offensive coordinator a certain amount, but it is kind of getting a little late in the game to not have one after you lose Tommy Reese to Alabama. Now there are guys out there you can go get that'll be fine. This is just just kind of a bad look all the way around because it is late and you didn't want to pay a buyout. And Notre Dame's supposed to have a bunch of money, right? They can pay every buyout, but they only wanted Andy Ludwig so bad.
Pete Sampson, who writes and covers Notre Dame for The Athletic, we've had Pete on the show. This is a bit of a shock when the Ludwig news a couple of days ago. Considering the optimism around Notre Dame regarding him replacing Reese as offensive coordinator, Ludwig interviewed in South Bend just past weekend. And the buyout would have been $3 million. I think if that job would have been for somebody at Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, maybe Texas, Oklahoma, whoever, I don't think they blink. But that doesn't mean you have to. They might still end up with somebody really, really good and good who still might help them quite a bit. But that's a little bit, I would think. And Pete Sampson, this is a little bit like not a great look that they can't find the offensive coordinator and they're still looking for one with just a few days before spring drills. When we come back, he is the chairperson, the board chairperson for the Big 12, Dr. Lawrence Skuvanek, Texas Tech president. Next on the Big 12, moving forward, this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco with General Manager Ted Teague. Hello, Ted, who watches and listens to us all of the time. Right now, the President's Day sales event going on, the 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab, 0% financing for 72 months, or the Ram 1500 Crew Cab with 1.9% financing for 72 months on most trim levels, the Lone Stars, Laramies, and the top-of-the-line Longhorn and Longhorn Limiteds. Or get a Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, values up to $8,250 plus an extra $500 for first responders. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $2,000 and 1.9% financing and a second and third row seating options. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
We're back on 365 Sports, and of course, last week, a lot of the news late in the week when the Big 12 announced the early exit agreement with Texas and Oklahoma. Dr. Lawrence Skuvidek, Texas Tech president, also the board chairman of the Big 12, joins us here on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Doctor, thank you very much for your time. What did, when the agreement was reached, and everyone kind of felt like maybe one was coming, although there's ups and downs with that, was there a sense of we now know there's a timeline, a deadline, a time frame, and a little bit of relief?
Yes. Well, David, I have to admit something up front. You talking?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Okay. I thought we were going to talk about the fact that our basketball team just beat 2 ranked teams in 3 days.
We will get to that. And thank God they did, because they needed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, there you are. You just beat a number 12 and a number 6, and you're 3-10 in the conference. It says what kind of conference we have. But back to your question. Brett Yormark, our commissioner, began to work on this months ago from different angles. And Brett did a fabulous job. He would say that this is one of the most complicated deals he's ever done, because you had 2 conferences, you had 2 TV partners, and then you had all these institutions. And you're talking about a guy who oversaw the move of the New Jersey Nets to Brooklyn, and the building of the Barclays Sports and Entertainment Center there. So he's been in this arena, and he said this was very complicated. We wanted to get this past us. I think Oklahoma and Texas had said they would play through 24-25, but it's all awkward. We kind of likened this to the movie The War of Roses, where they stayed together once they announced their divorce. And we were good partners, but it's best that we know what our future holds. And so I think this was a deal that was fair to everybody. Brett's relationship with Fox and ESPN was a big part of being able to get this done. Everybody gave a little. And he can now spend his time on things that are really important for the future of the conference. You'll start to see maybe some refreshment of our brand. Brett's looking at ways to enhance revenue streams to the conference. And now we know where we stand, and we can start to really benefit from his expertise in those ways.
With the conference moving forward and the potential for expansion in the future, how do you see that as a possibility now that these other things are out of the way? And from Texas Tech's perspective, what benefits Texas Tech when it comes to adding other teams to the conference?
Obviously, expansion is something we're going to be talking about. And you've read of some of the discussions that are going on. We had a board meeting of the board this week, and Brett kind of reviewed where we are and things we might be doing. I think Brett recognizes that basketball is probably undervalued. It's worth a lot more than we're getting from it right now. And so you've seen the conversation about Gonzaga. There's no decisions made there, but obviously that's been in the news. I think that the conference wants to move forward cautiously, take advantage of Brett's ability to find a new opportunity. It's hard to say what's going to happen with the Pac-12. I think this week reaffirmed their commitment to one another. So I don't know how that might influence those discussions, but those possibilities are being looked into. It would be presumptuous of me to start saying what could happen. As for Texas Tech, we like the fact that we're in a conference that just got a new TV deal. And that was the first thing Brett did. We got more money per institution with the 12 than we did with the 10. And when you lose schools of the marquee value of Oklahoma and Texas, that says a lot. And now we have clarity about where our future is with regard to OU and Texas leaving, and that gives us, I think, more leeway to plan for expansion. As far as Tech is concerned, to get back to the point, we like the fact that we're in a very solid conference, the best basketball conference in the United States, and a darn good conference and everything else.
How smart in hindsight, even though there's still a lot to be played out, but how much does everybody now reflect on the decision to go ahead and talk TV deal a little bit earlier than was expected or scheduled? I mean, given some of the headlines that are out there right now, how is everybody in the conference feeling about the decision to jump out early and grab a TV deal?
Yeah, that's a very important point. We feel very good about that. When you bring in new members, as we did, everybody does have to deal with the effect of the dilution of spreading that pie out among 4 new members. But once we get into the 25-26 season with that new TV deal, we'll be ahead of where we were with our current contract. So that's very important to us. It gives us a lot of financial stability, and Brett's going to be looking for other revenue streams. I think if you look at where the Big 12 is with regard to their TV deal, and you look at the situation the Pac-12 is still dealing with, and of course I'm not privy to the details there, I like our position. And I still think there's more to be discovered there. The deal that we have does allow for some pro rata expansion possibilities. So if we bring in new members, ESPN as a partner is willing to contribute towards that distribution. So it gives us, I think, more strength in terms of expansion possibilities. Beyond the fact that we have some solidity about where we are. We understand it's not the same deal that the Big Ten just struck, but we're solidly in the third best position among the Power Five.
Dr. Skubadek, do you, when you mention the pro data or if you add one team, you get X amount, is that what would be, for example, the average number that teams are getting with the newer deal when that kicks in a year? Is that like, for example, if it's 30, that if you add a team, they get 30 and the ESPN and whoever else is committed to that number, 35, 40, 50, whatever?
Yeah, that's the basic idea, David. Now, that involves our relationship with Fox, with ESPN. So it wouldn't be a complete distribution, match. But I'm sure Brett would go back with our other partner, Fox, and work on that. But it's ESPN is the bulk of our deal, and so that pro rata clause does give us some flexibility to consider expansion, where there would be a minimal impact upon the existing members.
When the Texas OU story popped a couple of summers ago, and also last summer it was UCLA and USC, but when that popped a couple of years ago, what were some of the scenarios that went through your mind?
Now, those were not good days. My friends have heard this story. I had just become the chair of the board, and I went home, and my wife said to me, "It didn't take you long to screw this up." And we have to give credit to Bob Bowlesby for the deal, the work he did to bring in these 4 new members. We got 4 great schools. I think everybody sees it. And acting as we did, I think was important in negotiating a new TV deal. And so getting those schools in early as we did, I think was a very smart deal. Of course, at Texas Tech, we love playing Texas. And that's important to us. And so we're going to miss, a regular rivalry with those schools, but it doesn't diminish how we feel about our new members. But those were challenging times. And if you think back to the Big 12 then, obviously people were making statements, were committed to one another, but we didn't really know what the future held. The important point is we stuck together, and that's what enabled us to go ahead and move forward and get those 4 schools.
Do you think that your fan base in the last couple of years, the way that they travel on the road, the way that the home atmosphere is, whatever sport it is, has kind of announced to the world that, look, no matter what you can say about Lubbock, Texas, and all that, we're going to show up and you're going to have a packed house, and it has maybe helped grow your profile a little bit out from what people would say, well, it's out there in Lubbock, it's a long way to go, but, man, people seem to be enthusiastic when they're there.
They are. I think if you watched the game Monday night, you saw that. The place was jammed. It was loud. Every school's proud of their game day experience, Paul, but we take a back seat to no one. Now, I really don't know what you're referring to when you keep saying out there in Lubbock. I mean, we have a fine airport.
Yeah.
And but I admit people just don't wander through Lubbock. They have to be intentional about getting there. But
that's what
Lubbock
I meant.
Well, Brett was here in town for the Kansas 2 weeks, a week ago Sunday maybe, or the week before we announced for the Kansas State Lady Raiders game, and I picked him up at the airport and he came up to my home and we visited and we drove through campus. He, like so many others, marvel at what a beautiful place this is. And so there's a lot of things going well for Tech. And I say number one thing is our fan base. We have the greatest fans. I can quantify that, but I won't get into the details. It's just not my impression.
Going back to the Oklahoma-Texas situation from a couple years ago, I know that they'd have to give 18 months notice whenever they were planning on actually doing that's a bit of a question, and maybe you guys have had that answered in the time since, but had that not broken the way that it did, as far in advance, however far that was, in theory, do you think the conference would have been able to move as quickly had it happened 10 months later? And do you think you guys would have been able to make it whole with the 4 schools that you did or some other arrangement, or would that story not breaking have put you up against the wall to the point where maybe there wasn't a pivot that was available like it was 2 summers ago?
Yeah, that's a good point. Who could have foreseen that UCLA and USC were going to leave as they did? Mm-hmm. And I think by having knowledge of where we were so far in advance, it helped us add the schools we wanted. And I think that's more of so there's going to be some challenges for anybody else right now to get those quality of schools. The issue about when a school leaves, the bylaws basically, there's an agreement that says you owe 2 years of distribution. And that was, so one of the issues in this settlement was that we didn't really go that route. What Oklahoma and Texas gave up was foregone revenue they would have received had they stayed in the league, and the dilution they contributed to for our new members. And so there are many options as to way the settlement could have been reached. And part of, I think, the brilliance of what Brett did was to find the path that got us to a decision. And in the end, Oklahoma and Texas worked with us very well. And there was a lot of bitterness, months back. But I think this next year, it's a chance to kind of memorialize their exit from the conference. And I think that's going to be interesting and fun. And in the end, I think we all left feeling pretty good about each other.
Will you play Texas once they leave the conference in football?
Well, we'd like to. I'm not the person that would that's something that Kirby and the ADs will work on. They'll work on. I know many people in the Red Raiders want to see that. I want to see it, and I guarantee you, we'll try to do that. It would be kind of. I couldn't say right now how and when that's going to happen, but that's important to us. That rivalry means a lot. And this year it was sort of ironic that it's the first time we've ever beaten OU and Texas in the same year. We hate to lose those wins by them coming off the schedule.
Fair play.
Man, you've got some really good zingers in there, and it's appreciate your time. I want to get into Joey McGuire. The football team ended the season strong, had the 8-5, and obviously we know Joey from his time, in high school around Dallas, and then, of course, his time at Baylor as well. The first time you met him, did you know then that he was the one you wanted?
Yes. We interviewed him in Baylor, in Waco. And it was love at first sight. Although we had a lot of prior knowledge of Coach McGuire. He right now, I would venture to say he's the most popular person in Lubbock and in the Raider Nation, with justifiable reasons. The way they finished the season, the way he's recruited, but also it's the way it's him and that coaching staff. They get it. He fits at Tech. He fits in West Texas. People, Red Raiders, identify with his character, his love for this school, and we feel very, very fortunate to have him here. And I went to an event I think it was Friday. He was hosting a fantasy camp for these gentlemen that support the football program, and they have a couple days they spend with the coaching staff. If you watch him, the way he navigates those situations, the way he can communicate, of course, he's a great coach, but he knows how to run, and he has CEO skills that are so important for a head coach these days, especially in this world of NIL and all that other stuff.
Do you ever, when you're having maybe a sluggish morning, just give him a call for a quick, 5-minute pep talk?
Well, I don't want to bother him. He's very busy. But the thing about Joey is he's the same guy today as he was the day we met him. He will talk to everybody. I think what people love about him is how authentic he is. And he loves those players, and they can tell it. And he loves his staff. We're darn lucky to have Joey McGuire and Debbie here.
Dr. Scavano, we know that the Big 12 has their new TV deal. The Texas OU exit has been completed and all of that, and now looking forward. Do you have a chance while you're in those meetings, presidents, et cetera, that the Big 12 teams are committed to the Big 12? Because you hear about what might be happening with the Pac-12. You hear about the future of other conferences. And is the Big 12 committed to each other? Is that something that you have to worry about down the road?
No, I don't worry about that. This league, there's a cultural similarity among all these schools. The presidents and chancellors like each other. And you might say I'm naive and I think that matters, but I think it does. And so we like where we are. The 4 new members were great additions. I think that's why we're going to be very thoughtful in how we expand in order to maintain that culture that's important. And Brett has some great marketing ideas. So, guys, I would say just, pay attention because he's just started.
In fact, that was my last question. Is there going to be some revenue flow stream, extra cash in hand, with ideas that some of us may not even know exist right now, but he knows the future that well?
Yeah, he's always looking at things like that. And he has ideas, and I don't want to spill the beans here, but he's talked about international engagement. Where do we hold our events to announce the beginning of the season? Be in the cities with the biggest market impact. Of course, Dallas has been good to us, but there are other things he's looking at. So he has a host of ideas. You ought to get him on the show someday, I'll let him speak for himself.
Yeah, we've had him a couple of different times. Look forward to him again now that the exit agreement has been reached, and we'll have him on this show very soon. Dr. Skovanec, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. I know you're busy. Great having you on the show. Good luck with the men's basketball team as they try to close it out with some more wins after, as you mentioned, a pretty nice little stretch against Kansas State and Texas. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Dr. Lawrence, you too. Dr. Lawrence Skovanec with us on 365 Sports on many things, not Texas Tech, a little bit, but also on the Big 12. And the question at the end, and somebody else saw this in the chat room, is, you look at the Big Ten, everybody seems to be, there's no one in the Big Ten looking to go elsewhere. The SEC, no matter speculation, they're all happy as hell to be where they are. Why would they want to go elsewhere? We don't know about the future of what is the ACC. Maybe some are just happy as they can be, and there's some that look for a possibility of out. The Pac-12 is just trying to figure out, we need a damn TV deal. And maybe that solidifies, and who else may add to that? And the Big 12's got everything wrapped up, but there's always some concern, and I think he answered that pretty emphatically about the future and felt like the culture of everybody in the conference is one. That doesn't mean, like he said, he goes, I can't always predict the future, but he said, I don't want to be naive because the landscape is changing all the time.
I like just to talk about basketball being more international. When, look, the NBA is a huge deal internationally. Basketball is a huge international sport now. Every team in the Big 12 has a player from another country on it seems like, right? I mean, maybe I'm not completely accurate in that of the 10 teams that, there might be one with just, Americans on it, but, Baylor has several too, off the top of my head I can think of, and everybody's got somebody that's from somewhere else. So why not try to grow? If you're recruiting those guys anyway, if you're recruiting from the NBA Academy out of Africa, if you're recruiting guys out of Europe, then why not do more over there, right? Let people know who the Big 12 is basketball-wise. When you've got Kansas, and let's say if you did add Gonzaga, you've got Kansas, Gonzaga, Baylor, all these teams that are always in the mix and really do something. I kind of intrigued to see where that would go.
Yeah, the international thing is intriguing to me. I remember when that came out, Ashley Hodge, who's very much entrenched in, of course, men's basketball coverage, he really reacted to that like, oh, my goodness. And again, there's also that's why you see the Gonzaga nugget, which might be more than a nugget as far as the interest with that as he looks for other ways. When you can't just get the biggest deals, then you need to find different types of ways to make more money, and I think he is scratching all of that. All those, at least those particular opportunities, and it doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I mean, some good stuff in there. Feel good about where they are. I don't think that was just false confidence. I think that they all sound, from talking to him and then to Mac Rhodes, just a couple of days ago, that sounds like they're all on really good footing. And there's a lot to be excited about and a lot that we still don't even know just yet. And it's notable that, they're not backing down from being very open about the idea of looking to expand or basically being open to do pretty much anything. It sounds like, in terms of just thinking outside the box, thinking of, perhaps some international things, thinking of expansion in general. They are on the hunt for whatever's going to bring some money in, but also make sense. And so I think that, with Yormark as sort of the visionary of this new era, the fact that they went and got that TV deal when they did. Again, I don't think we've really harped on enough, how big of a deal that was in hindsight. There's a bunch of people who are like, well, look at, they're costing themselves money, or what are they doing? Why are they going to the table so early? This is stupid. And there was some criticism of that. And there was also just a bunch of wondering, why would you try and get a TV deal early? Why would you potentially take less money? Well, look no further than the Pac-12 story right now. That's exactly why they did what they did. And had they not done that, how much money is available, next year or 2 years from now? At that point, probably not a great slot TV network-wise. Probably not a great payout in terms of having 12 members. So, I think that was really a huge play on the part of Brett Yormark that we'll be talking about for a long time. And under no illusions that they're going to be competing neck and neck with the SEC and Big Ten, monetarily anytime soon or ever. But in terms of remaining healthy and having a healthy outlook on the future and being pretty sturdy, from what he just said about everybody kind of being on board together, even acknowledging that it might sound foolish to some people out there, but he believes it. He's going to say it anyway. Looking at the money side of things, making as much, if not more, moving forward than they were previously, having Fox, having ESPN, and having somebody in charge who's got a lot of ideas. I think that given where they were a couple summers ago, it's a pretty remarkable job by just everybody involved leadership-wise at the Big 12 to reach the point that they appear to be reaching. And we'll see what the future looks like, obviously, but way better shape than anybody could have predicted on that day when Brett Zorneman's story first broke.
Absolutely, because there was, oh, my God, what's happening? The walls are falling in, and there were a lot of that. And maybe because of his relationships within the network system. And Bob Thompson will join us at some point. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow, Friday, or early next week. Maybe Yormark's relationships not only allowed him to work on an agreement or a TV deal, but maybe somebody in the industry said, hey, you need to know this is not going to get any easier. Not threatening him, but it would be better to do it now, not strong-arming him either. By the way, here's the note. Chris Beard, former Texas men's basketball coach, the domestic violence charge against him has been dropped. That's from the district attorney, Jose Garza. That's not a surprise. He no longer is the coach at Texas. And so that story comes to an official end as far as the legal part of it. Now, and yes, some of the very first responses, okay, who's going to hire him to coach their team next year?
Well, the victim was not going to cooperate, so that makes it cooperate, which is going to make it difficult for any charges to be filed. But there was evidence to support such a thing. I mean, it was there, and then that's why this got to the point. And as far as him being a coach somewhere, Texas asked him the question, and he didn't really answer it, and kind of fought it every step along the way of, okay, even if this happened the way that you and she now say it happened, why are you involved in this in the first place? You're the head basketball coach at Texas. You're in charge of 15 different athletes, 12 scholarship, and probably 3 or 4 walk-ons, and coaches, and they look to you for leadership. And in a spot where you could have stepped away and discretion was the better part of valor, you responded in anger when it doesn't appear that was really necessary. So why did you do that, and why are you in that situation? And how can we trust that you'll never be in that situation again? And I think Texas answered it pretty emphatically that they couldn't, and that's why they fired him. And that's why they should have fired him. And that's what the next place is going to have to ask. And eventually they'll be compromising their ethics enough to do that and hope that it doesn't happen again. But
yeah, I mean, I think that, if that's what happened and that's what needed to happen as far as their version of events, if he doesn't really deserve to be charged, then I'm glad that they got dropped. If that's not really, how it should have gone down, if all was fair and equal, then, there will probably be more to this story. But, as far as on the surface, we don't know. We weren't there that night. He said, she said, and by the end of it, she was saying exactly what he was saying. And the attorney was attempting to, dunk on people on Twitter, if y'all remember that, just prior to Christmas. I hadn't seen many tweets from him since the dismissal. But, yeah, I mean, Texas was embarrassed by his actions, and it's kind of like the NFL where you put a blemish on the shield and you can get penalized for that. I mean, not necessarily fired like he was, but it's totally understandable from their point of view that, this was an ugly, embarrassing situation. We can't have one of our top leaders in the university being involved in things like this. And I'm sure there was some element of okay, well, if we do bring him back, is there a risk this happens again? And then what does that look like if there's an incident number 2? And for all we know, there could have been not an incident like that, but there could have been signs before. We're not around there. So they might have had an idea of this, we got to keep an eye on this. And then that happens and they're like, all right, we got to get, so we don't know all of the details, but people at Texas are smart. And they didn't just willy-nilly decide to fire him after that sole, night in Austin. So, yeah, I mean, good for him. If that's what he deserved, was to have the charges dropped, because it really wasn't as it was painted to be, then I'm glad justice prevailed. But again, if not, then I'm sure justice will prevail at some point. But yeah, he'll be coaching college basketball very soon. There's no question in my mind about that. That was far from the most egregious thing that's happened college basketball headline-wise. And worse people have done worse things and still found jobs pretty quickly in the world of college basketball, unfortunately. So he'll be back in no time.
When we come back, remember Ohio State canceling games against Washington? I knew I would find out a little bit, not really much of behind the scenes, but I have some of the information from 11 Warriors. Does a great job. Dan Hope covers Ohio State and sent me this a link to kind of give you a little background, why and what it means. They still have some dudes on their schedule, but they won't have Washington for those couple of years. That's next. And Scott Drew joins us a little after 5 o'clock, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, for the life of your vehicle, for great deals as well. If you are somebody that's in the market for a new or a pre-owned vehicle, they have a Texas-size selection on the lot right now. That means qualified buyers can save thousands of dollars on new 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500s. Or you can get special financing, 2.9% financing on the new 2023 GMC Sierra truck. See dealer for further details. But there are deals like that going on right now that can save you thousands of dollars or get you special financing. And the 2023 GMC Sierra is just one of the models that you can go to the dealership and talk to them about and hopefully get a great deal on. If you're looking for an SUV, how about a luxury SUV without the luxury price? They've got the 2023 Buick Envisions. It's got a smooth and quiet ride. Again, qualified buyers can get lease payments with $5,000 down cash or trade at $269 per month or save thousands on a purchase. But I know you hear a bunch of numbers and that can all sound very jumbled. So again, just contact Richard Carr. They're great customer service. They'll be able to explain it and let it sink in and let you evaluate your position and decide how to best move forward. But those are a couple of the models they have on the lot right now. The 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500s, the 2023 Buick Envisions. They also have a lot of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well, many of them in stock under $20,000. All of those pre-owns are thoroughly inspected. They're affordable, and they're also ready to finance for almost any credit rating. Quality vehicles, no matter where you're looking, ready to drive today over at Richard Carr. In business for 23 years here in Central Texas, they built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. That's KARR.com today. Call them now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
There are 26
26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
11 Warriors is a website. We've had Dan Hope on this show discussing Ohio State Buckeyes football. But it's a story about the cancellations of the home and home with Washington in 24-25. They'll owe $500,000. They will have plenty of extra money. Well, they have all the money you want, but they'll have even more because now, because of the cancellation in 24, Ohio State can have an 8th home game for the 2024 season. And then, of course, also having plenty of money to pay the penalty and the guarantee for that 8th opponent. They'll play only 6 home games next year. 8 home games in 2022 this past season. Baylor, of course, we thought about like, wow, does that happen? And they have 8 coming up. And, of course, with 12 games now, that happens more often than you think. Ohio State in 2024 will play Southern Miss at home, Western Michigan at home, and Texas at home. And, Texas will be in 2025 at home, along with UConn. So that's one of the things behind it. Basically discussing that the scheduling is changing, the conference is changing. The Buckeyes' future non-conference games, and I love these type of games, Texas in 25-26, Alabama 27-28, Georgia 30-31, Oregon for 2 years after that, then Boston College. I love great non-conference games. And as we mentioned, we hope this wasn't a sign of, okay, now we have the 12-team playoff. Let's make it easier. I want more of these juicy games. Like Texas, Alabama last year and the upcoming year, too.
Although Boston College is a step down from the list, and Boston College.
That's
I know
just home and home. That might be Boston College and who knows, USC.
I think it'd be great, for the people in Boston, Ohio State going and playing there. That'd be awesome. But yeah, like I said before, I just think it's clear that the scheduling has to change, and there's gonna be carnage, somewhere. Sometimes it's gonna be those, Florida A&Ms are not gonna get those guarantee games anymore, but sometimes it's gonna be Washington. They're taking them off the schedule because they just can't fit it in. So the simplest explanation is usually the right one.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted an extra home game. I mean, they could fit it in. It was on the schedule, but, I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, they just didn't want to. But it was there, too. They just would rather have an 8th home game. So that's the explanation, I guess, and that's fine. And, we'll see them play some big teams along the way in the few years after that. They've still got, as you mentioned, some big teams on the schedule in the next decade plus. So, it's not like they're running from competition, but that is unfortunate. That's a pretty cool matchup, and maybe that's a Big Ten game at 10 years from now. But that's part of the business.
So, yesterday the news, it's an NFL note. Craig was discussing this in Off the Radar about Derek Carr. The Raiders released him. He would have been guaranteed a bunch of money. Now he's a free agent. So I just happened to look at this. This is something in a story about him now becoming a free agent. In the 2014 NFL draft, Carr was taken number 36 overall. Behind Blake Bortles, who Baylor got a big dose of in the Fiesta Bowl in 2014. Or it would have been 13, I guess. Johnny Manziel and Teddy Bridgewater. Those are the 4 top quarterbacks taken in the 2014 NFL draft. Carr, Manziel, Bridgewater, and Bortles. And Carr's been okay. Bridgewater's, he's kind of a handyman. He's okay. But, man, that's not a good group in 2014.
No, Carr's the best one by far. And, I think he's going to get a good deal somewhere. I think that the Saints need to consider him. I think the Titans need to consider him. I think that Washington needs to consider him. I think the Jets probably need to consider him. But that's, based on everything else. And I also don't think teams need to wait around for Aaron Rodgers either. I think that would be
foolhardy. We've seen that before.
Look, Aaron Rodgers is either going to fall in your lap, and by fall in your lap, you're going to have to give up a bunch of picks to get him. That's either going to happen or it's not. But Derek Carr is out there now. So if you're a team that needs a quarterback and a guy who's good, I mean, he's better than, he's in the top half of the league. I mean, I would put him in the top 16, wouldn't you, Smokey? As far as guys you'd want as your
Derek
quarterback?
Carr?
Yeah.
I would, I haven't studied it that much. I would think somewhere in the middle of the pack. Yeah.
Look, he would be an upgrade for the Jets, right? He'd be an upgrade for the Saints. He'd be an upgrade for Washington. And I don't know if it'd be necessarily an upgrade, but maybe a better situation in Tennessee if he went there than Ryan Tannehill right now, who's been injured, and they kind of maybe need something else to make that pop there. So yeah, I mean, and I'm leaving out some teams, I'm sure, but I think that those 4 teams are among teams that could get into bidding for him and have a pretty decent quarterback for the next couple of years.
Far worse quarterbacks have signed big deals in the offseason because the ability to get a quarterback is tough for some. I mean, Washington's tried time and time again and still haven't found a guy that they've just stuck with, basically. I mean, it's been one guy after the other, revolving door every couple years of, now it's Taylor Heineke. Let's try him out. Oh, wait, nope, he's not going to work either. Before that, I mean, name a guy. They've probably been in a Washington uniform.
Jeez.
Over the last 20 to 30 years. So it's hard to find a guy. And then in some cases, like it's Dallas and Tony Romo or the Raiders and Derek Carr, even if a guy's pretty good, if he's not winning the Super Bowl, then he's not, up to snuff. Or you, after a while, just decide, like, maybe we've hit a wall and it's time to move on. And let's not act like he's coming from, like, the best organization either, and that the reason the Raiders haven't won Super Bowls is because of Derek Carr. Like, spare me that. Have been as dysfunctional as anybody, even though they might be getting their game together in Vegas. I mean, I'm more curious to see what this means for them because they're clearly going to go big and feel like they can go big in some form or fashion, whether that's, going and signing an Aaron Rodgers or it's getting somebody in the draft. They're wanting to turn the page, and so that should be exciting for Raiders fans. And I think Derek Carr's still got plenty left in the tank, and just because he didn't win Super Bowls and silver and black, I mean, who has recently? Who has in, 40 years now since they've won a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
30-something years since they've won a Super Bowl. So, that's not unique to him. So I think this is one of those where just you both go your separate ways and you're probably better for it, and both will be fine in the long run.
All right, it's almost 5 o'clock. Scott Drew on the other side of the top of the hour, thanks to Matt Tate earlier. If you missed that is up, 365 Sports on YouTube, and also on our Twitter feed, 365 Sports Y2, where Emery puts those segments up. Dr. Lawrence Skuvadak of Texas Tech was on with us a little bit about an hour ago. Appreciate his time. Scott Drew coming up next. We'll have Paul's Top 5 in about 50 minutes or so. That's also enough to remind me that tonight at 10:30 on the CW channel, Sports Tonight Emery Winter puts together what we have, segments we do, puts it up. Today I was at a doctor's office, and one of the guys that I was talking to actually said, I love the TV show. And I have to sometimes still remember, okay, YouTube or is it to 10:30? He said the 10:30. He's working most of the time during the day, although I did tell him he can have a buffet of segments anytime he wants by going to our page, 365 Sports. This is 365 Sports. I didn't ask him this question, but I had heard from Chris Level, who covers Texas Tech, that Dr. Skubanek is a big pickleball guy. Pickleball is an incredibly fast-rising sport competition, and in fact, there's a huge tournament coming to Waco on March the 4th and the 5th, a two-day shootout at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, the Victory Road Series Shootout Pickleball Tournament. $45 plus $15 for each event entered. Players' ages, minimum age is 18, and of course you can be as old as you want, and based on who I see out on those courts or coming through to play either in the morning, the afternoon, on the weekends, in the evenings, the age bracket is very much from top to bottom. Registration deadline, by the way, coming up in a couple of weeks, so you've got time. Women's and men's doubles, mixed doubles, women's and men's singles, all skills, ages. The format, round robin with playoffs for gold, silver, and bronze medals. Saturday and Sunday, it will be loaded up. Brackets will be split by skill, age after the registration deadline. Also, the ball that will be used is the Franklin X40 outdoor pickleball, and they have Jody Thurman, who's the pickleball instructor at the gym, who's the one you can contact if you want. So you could also email Kimo, K-I-M-O, at pickleballisgreat.com. Love that email address, Kimo, K-I-M-O, at pickleballisgreat.com for more information. The Victory Road Series Shootout Pickleball Tournament in Waco, March the 4th and 5th at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive.
The President's Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab with 0% for 72 months or Ram 1500 Crew Cab with 1.9% for 72 months on all trim levels, only while supplies last.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagney is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagney. Tell them Paul sent you by.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Garrett, when I come on early, if the mic is hot that I owe $10, I'll start giving that to you since you've saved me a couple of times from
Sounds
premature return. We mentioned the Chris Beard case. The DA has dropped charges against him. Also, the Chiefs had their parade today and basically ain't done yet. That was the theme. And, of course, why would they be? You never know when those things come and go, though. The Patriots are the exception. They were good for a long, long time. They ended up having perhaps the GOAT with Tom Brady and obviously with Belichick, and they were able to change who they were or mold who they were differently. Also, Tiger Woods today played 16 holes at the Genesis Pro-Am at Riviera as he tries to come back. I have none expectations for what he might do on the golf course. I'm just glad that he's able to want to play and get back on the course, although that will be interesting. We don't know. You know,
no.
You don't know. He looks so fragile. The last time he tried, he's tried it. God bless him. He does move the needle. A lot of people go, why are they showing him? Because he moves the needle. He's a logo. He's a brand. He's the greatest perhaps of all time. That's debatable with Nicklaus and others, but he moves the needle even if he's 8 over par.
Let me ask you this. Wouldn't you be interested in seeing him try to come back at least the couple times he might try before he stops, or start watching on the way to what could be an incredible comeback? I mean, that to me, at least right now, Tiger Woods is interesting to watch. If he keeps pushing it and he's far away from who he was, then it becomes kind of sad.
You don't want to see Willie Mays in center field for the Mets dropping an easy fly ball.
But right now I'm in. Like right now I'm curious, I'm in. If it goes on too long where it's clear that he can't walk, he can't play like he did, then, maybe it's time to move on.
I thought last year maybe he pushed it. It's his career. It's his body. It's his mind. He's still, I will DVR. Here's the deal. I will DVR tomorrow's coverage of the Genesis, wherever it is on the Golf Channel, whatever, because he's playing, even if he bogeys the first 7 holes. I wouldn't do that otherwise. I will with all majors, but I'll do that tomorrow. And then again, whenever he might tee off as well on Friday. I would not have put myself out here if I didn't think I could beat these guys and win an event. That's my mentality. That's always been. He does say, obviously, and he's no doubt a little bit rusty, but he did play 16 holes. That car accident a couple of years ago, and then tried to come back and just could not do much last year. He at Augusta National. You're like wondering if there is still some craziness like it was, what was it now, 3 or 4 years ago when he won. I don't expect that to ever happen. But him on that course, if he could just get healthy enough to fine-tune his game, he's got to play in some tournaments to be sharp enough for when that
thing. He knows it, right? I mean, he knows it's not going to surprise him. The thing is, does he have the juice to play it? Does he have the juice to win? And it's just, can he walk? You don't get to ride in a cart.
That was last year that even in some of the other, like the one with his son, where you could see him really hobbled.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to be all that much better by now. I mean, it was a severe accident.
Yeah, no,
I mean, and he's in his mid-40s now, or trending toward the late 40s. It doesn't come back like it used to. And he's had a lot of different injuries. Sometimes it's just time. I hope it's not now, but, I think that we have to be ready for it to be now.
Yeah, there'll be huge crowds out there. And yeah, I do get those who are not big Tiger fans when they watch, he's 8 over par and he's not going to make the cut, but they show his last 3 holes because, again, there's that ratings needle that he brings to the table. So that's one of the stories from earlier today. We'll have Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball coach, here in just a moment. New Mexico State is looking for a new men's basketball coach. The head coach has been fired. We had Colin Deaver on yesterday from KTSM in El Paso. He said he felt like that was just a matter of time. Well, that time came yesterday evening. As they fired the head coach, they move in a different direction. I mentioned this in a text with Paul and Craig. The AD, Mario Macoa, he, based on what Colin Deaver said, is okay, safe for now. But, again, that could be the key word for now.
There's a lot of people involved that don't need to be in college athletics or around young people. It sounds like, at least. And he's on that list of certainly who you'd question being involved in this industry based on all of the stuff that's coming out of there. So, that's not a surprise. By the way, Notre Dame also apparently has found their OC. They will promote tight ends coach Gerard Parker.
Okay.
So he will be, it looks like, the next offensive coordinator of the Fighting Irish. So they're going in-house after the search, and we'll see what the reaction to that is like.
Well, we just mentioned that, and there we go. We're now joined by national championship men's basketball coach Scott Drew. Baylor 9-4, along with Texas and Kansas. Coach, thanks for your time as always. So 0-3 to 9-4. I know you've got to go game by game. You can't look down the road, but we sure can, and fans can go, oh, my goodness. Did you expect with 5 games left to be tied at the top of the conference standings at 0-3?
Well, I can promise one thing. It's a lot better 9-4 than 0-3.
No kidding.
But you know what? That's how you get to 9-4 is taking every game one at a time, one possession at a time. And as you know, in this Big 12, 9-4, 4-9 usually comes down to a couple possessions here or there.
Scott, your team is as deep as it's been, and you've got guys who have been, because of the early part of the season, what you had to do, that aren't playing much now, but in a pinch or in a situation can come in and give you really good minutes. Mm-hmm. I can't think of – you might be able to go 10 deep if you had to. Is this maybe the most guys you've had available with experience at any point during a year?
I think so, and partly that's a lot of schools are in the same situation because of the COVID year. Everybody has a lot older guys, more experienced guys. When you look at scouting reports, it's really hard to find a lot of teams that have many freshmen on it. So everybody's more experienced, but it really helped us in the beginning of the year, giving a lot of guys minutes and opportunities. And now foul trouble, illness, injury, you can put people in that have been there, done it, and have the experience already.
You've had Everyday John back now for a couple of weeks. How have you seen him continue to progress and just continue to knock some of that rust off and get back to it?
Well, definitely the game is slowing down a little bit for him, especially second half of the last game. You could see he got more comfortable, wasn't as rushed. But, again, we know it's going to take a couple weeks for our team to gel with him to get used to, get his legs back under him, get used to the game environment. So he's done a phenomenal job. The guy's done a great job in blending with him. And you see this so often in sports. You take a Nick Smith when he just came back for Arkansas. I think their first game he comes back, they lose at home to Mississippi State. Justin Moore comes back for Villanova. First game back, they lose it, I think, at home. It just takes time to get that rhythm, chemistry, and then, as you know, it's a team game. There's 5 guys out there. It's not just one. So each and every day we're getting more comfortable with him, and that's the great thing about when he came back. It gives us time to do that.
We discussed his long range, the threes that he hit when he came back, but I thought in the game against West Virginia – he showed that mid-range, that 8 to 10 or 12 footer, right now his repertoire seems to be very, very impressive.
Yeah, well, you spend over 300 days just shooting. You add a lot to the game, and again, John lives at the gym, so he's always been good around the rim. He's been good at mid-range. Now his three, we feel very comfortable and confident with. But if he gets a good look from mid-range, you're surprised if he misses.
Did you, when he first started shooting threes, were you a little bit like, do you need to be doing that? Or, how was the initial reaction to him going out and trying to add that to his game?
Well, each and every year we want our guys to have their games grow and develop. And prior to his injury, he had shot some threes and was probably taking about one a game, one every other game. And then after the injury, as much as he worked on it, the last thing you want to do is limit someone who has gotten so efficient at it in practice. Now, it's always different in the game, and it's great to see the carryover in the game. But coaches, that's why we practice all the time or watch people in practice all the time, because if they're very similar to Jalen was making shots all preseason and then got off to a rough start, but you weren't as concerned from the standpoint he made them in practice, so you were comfortable and you knew that he could make shots and he was a shot maker. So same thing with John. If John gets an open look, sometimes you rush shots. Sometimes, the best three-point shooters miss 6 out of 10. So he's going to miss threes. But if he has a good look, get used to it going in, because we see that a lot.
Scott, you mentioned how you had to work on a few things. Obviously you do when you don't win the first three, but you slowly but surely were trying to get better. Transition defense, you brought that up, a few other things. What now do you tweak that needs to get better? And I know you're always wanting better, even if it's pretty good.
Well, someone said this the other day. It was a couple days ago. St. Peter's was 12-11 at this point last year. North Carolina was on the bubble. So, you got to get better each and every day, because it's the teams that finish in the end and getting on a hot streak at the end. Those are the ones that advance. And you even look at us. Remember, we had the big COVID pause in February, and it wasn't until after the Big 12 tournament where we really started to get back on a roll of things. So we got to get better in every facet. But in particular, we have the number one offense in the country, so it's hard to improve on number one. But people, each and every game will guard us different. West Virginia trapped the ball screen. That's something we hadn't worked on as much. A lot more people are switching 1 through 5. That's something we'll have to work on more. And then defensively, we've gotten better since the beginning of conference. We need to continue to get better at that. We need to continue to develop that chemistry with 2 games ago. Remember, John catches a short roll and then he throws an alley-oop to Jalen, and that's just not something that we practice a lot. So they get people getting and every day in practice, your chemistry improves, and we're able to put bigs with littles, and you work on breakdown stuff. So having John a part of that now and the big thing is just keep praying for no injuries, because if you can stay healthy, then you can keep that rhythm and chemistry growing.
How much does John being back help flow, just in general, of minutes and the amount he was having to play and matchups and everything, where you can maybe now do more or exactly what you want to do with Flo because John is there?
Well, I think what it does is it allows Flo to compete harder and know that if I make a careless foul or an over-aggressive foul, or I don't have to pace myself, because he knows John can back him up, and vice versa. And to us, you look at positions, and at the 5 spot, if it's Flo, if it's John, if it's Josh, we want that to be the most productive threesome or twosome in the country. So if you're playing 20, 25, 18 minutes, whatever it is, you can play a lot harder and a lot more aggressive. And at the end of the day, what you do per possession matters more than what you do over 30 or 40 minutes. If like rebounding, for instance, you should go for every rebound, because once you're tired, you can get a break. Where if you're playing extended minutes, there's going to be times where you might not be able to go,
Scott, the turnaround from Saturday to Monday, can you try to explain that? Based on travel, obviously, that makes a difference too. But then the break after the Monday game where you do have time to maybe rest legs and get more practices in. Is that a good thing in the end, or is that just you never know?
Well, you try to get rhythms, routines. And, for instance, we played several big Monday games. And if you're successful, the next time you tend to do more of that. If you were tired or weren't as successful, you cut back, you change, you tweak. So you always are constantly adjusting what you're doing, and also on how far the travel is and what it is. But for us, it's when you have a chance to have 2 days to heal, and especially at this time of year, that's really important. Where if you're playing, so Saturday, Monday, that's really hard, but Tuesday and Wednesday you can recover, and Thursday and Friday gear up toward the next weekend. The name of the game right now is making sure in February that you're healthy, you're excited to play, you're rested, rather than worn down, beat down. They call it the dog days of February for a reason.
No question.
And that freshness, and that's where the crowd is so critical and so important too, because just like all of us, when you're a little tired at work, you need that jolt. Maybe it's for you Red Bull, maybe it's coffee for others, but that's what that crowd gets.
You have a Saturday, Tuesday turnaround, both games in Kansas. If that would have been a Saturday, Monday, would you have stayed in the state of Kansas?
Actually, we are staying in the state.
Okay.
So
all right.
we are going to do that. And nowadays you have a lot more classes online, which allow that. And it's not something that we do normally. Normally it's Saturday, Monday you would stay, but in this situation we are going to stay up there. So we'll see how it works. And like I said, when each week you tend to adjust what you do based on how you play and how you perform. And when you're playing well, you keep doing the same thing. When you're a little off, then you adjust.
What have you seen differently from Kansas than a few weeks ago when you played them here?
They're similar to us. I think both of us are playing better basketball, and they're taking care of the ball. They're making shots. They just had back-to-back double-digit road wins, which is really hard to do in the Big 12. Their freshman big Ernest is really starting to give them valuable minutes and big minutes. They're switching more, like they did against us. They're tending to do that more against everybody now. But hey, you go through ebbs and flows in the Big 12. Both of us went through 3-game losing streaks. Both of us are playing really good basketball right now, and you want to be peaking toward the end of the year rather than in the beginning.
Coach, when L.J. Cryer's having a shooting night like he was the other night, do you have like a fire extinguisher on the sidelines to like cool off his shoes? Are they like smoking at that point with flames coming off? I mean, my goodness.
No, we're just trying to get him the ball. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, you did. Man, did you ever. You absolutely did. I know you get analytics and data and all that about what's also happening with rankings and ratings and all that, but you got to focus on who you're playing in your own conference. How much do you get to kind of digest what's happening elsewhere around the country in college basketball?
Actually, that's probably one of the worst things about coaching is you spend so much time on your own team, you don't get a chance to watch much of what's going on. So we all have 24 hours in the day, and we all have to prioritize how we spend them. I'd love to watch a lot of college games. Unfortunately, usually you're watching your team, you're prepping for your team, you're watching your team practices, you're trying to just get yourself better each and every day. So, I'll look at scores. I might watch highlights here or there, but you don't get a chance to watch a lot of other games. And that's the great thing about being in the best league in the country. Every time you watch a Big 12 game, you really learn, you really grow and improve because everybody runs such good stuff, does such good things. It constantly makes you evolve and stay on the cutting edge of things.
Scott, last thing, you've got an incredible staff. You always have had a staff. Some of them have been able to go on and head coaches at other positions, including Coach Tang again coming up Tuesday. But with what they do, can you try to explain how valuable each and every one of them, like they have their own roles, but they also have players or positions, and how that has helped keep this thing together when it was at dicey at 0-3?
Yeah, but head coaches are only as good as their players and only as good as their staff. And with us, we have a great staff. Many hands make light work. It's like you right now. If you're the only one at the station, it's probably not working. You got a team over there helping make sure everything's smooth, and you're bringing out the best in everything you do. And that's the same thing. Our coaches, they have different positional groups. They all have different responsibilities. At the same time, we all work together, and that's what you love about basketball. There's a million ways to play, coach, do things the way we do things as a family. Everybody contributes, and that's why when coaches leave and take head jobs other places, a lot of times they do a lot of what we do because they've invested, they've put into it, they're a part of it. It's not just my thing or Coach Tang's thing or Coach McCaslin or Coach Mills or Coach Driscoll or Coach Jacobs, Coach Brooks. It's all of us. We all have input. We're all humble. We all learn from one another, and that's how we get the best product.
Culture, the joy, a culture of joy. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your time. Good luck in Kansas. Saturday, KU. Tuesday, Kansas State. We appreciate your time as always.
Hey, I'm thinking you should just come on up there and spend a couple days. Bring that winter coat.
Is that an invitation? There we go.
You're always welcome in Kansas.
Thank you. Thank you very much, buddy. That's Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball coach. I think
I know one person who would gladly take that invitation, but she would not be a fun travel partner on that Baylor plane.
No.
She would not.
No, not at all. That's Scott Drew again. Baylor was 0-3 in the conference. Now, 3 of those losses, the opening loss, they got blown out. Iowa State beat them up. Then there was the game against TCU. I was there for that one, and you could just see it coming. You know, even when they had kind of a nice little thing going late first half, you could start to see TCU just slowly but surely kind of take it away. And then at the end, one game possession. The 3 in the corner was critical. Miles was huge that night. And then the game with Kansas State was just a hell of a basketball game. And kind of again at the end, they just couldn't quite get enough. And they've turned the corner. That's why winning in Manhattan Tuesday, of course, Kansas first. That would be unbelievably a big win because they're tied at the lead with KU and Texas at 9-4. All right, 5:25 coming up in a little bit. We'll have John Machota, theathletic.com. The NFL season's over. The combine around the corner. That means later on there's the draft. Free agency's not far away. He'll answer questions on the Cowboys in the offseason and more. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. I saw this on their Facebook page, and oh my goodness, it's time. Live crawfish is back. Pre-orders available right now, $4.50 a pound. That number will go up a little bit, down a little bit. Call to order, Waco Custom Marketplace online. Orders must be placed every Wednesday by 6 for you to be able to pick up on Fridays after 4 or when the store is open at Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Erie Drive on Saturdays. Early season crawfish. Again, the quality, size, and price subject to change. Well, on top of that, do you like boudin? Some don't. Craig doesn't like it. I kind of do. $2.99 a pound. Select choice and beef, prime beef fillets from $10.50 a pound to $26.50 a pound. Lobster tails, $16.50 each. Fresh shrimp, 10% off. All of this week at Waco Custom Marketplace. Chicken wings, $1.90 a pound, and that's available too. But live crawfish, 30-pound sacks or bags for $4.50 a pound. Order by Wednesday at 6. Pick up anytime after 4 on Fridays or when they're open on Saturday at Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Erie Drive in Waco.
The future's bright. The time is now. Destiny is calling. Can you hear the sound?
This isn't just another song. This is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
The NFL season over, although it never ends, because as I mentioned a minute ago, the combine, pro days, off workouts with teams, and of course then the draft, but also free agency, the schedule release, and the next thing you know, you have workouts, OT, whatever they call them, and then training camp and games. John Machota, theathletic.com, joins us on 365 Sports. From the time the season ends, and the Cowboys season's been over for a little while, but from the time the Super Bowl ends, there's kind of a timeline where it all just kind of falls into each other. What do you enjoy the most as far as among the things I mentioned covering or dealing with or following between now and the next few months?
Oh, for me, it's definitely the combine. I mean, one of my favorite things about covering the team is literally just being around the prospects, but then also the fact that we get some of our better access there to Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones. Every year I've covered the team, we've had the bus where we go on there for about an hour and Jerry talks about, really just about anything. involving the team, and it gives you kind of a chance to reset and kind of know where their mindset is, kind of, going into free agency and then going into the draft, and kind of gets, you can kind of start piecing some things together. So there's just a lot of information you can get in just a matter of a few days of being in Indianapolis. And so, I think that clearly in today's NFL, where the access we get is less and less and less, I think that's probably still one of my favorite things. And I think most of the people that cover the team on a day-to-day basis probably would agree.
John, do you see this as a year where the Cowboys could be aggressive in the offseason? Whether, look, there's, the Diggs brothers have not stopped talking about wanting to play together in Dallas, which that would be a fantastic move for the Cowboys, and I almost don't care what it would cost. But, maybe even if it's not that, but maybe aggressive in the draft to move up or move around and get some things that would put them over the top, because they're not that far away right now based on the last couple of years, but they haven't made the last move.
I completely agree, and I think they should be. We'll see if that ends up happening. Of course, it takes two to get one of these deals done. If it is a trade or a major free agent signing or moving up in the draft to make a bigger move. Obviously, it takes two. But the one thing that I think could maybe push them a little bit more than the years past is the fact that now you have a team in your division that is going to be a handful, and the way they went about it was very aggressive. And so there has to be the feeling inside of the Star right now that, hey, maybe we need to be a little bit more aggressive. This is a team that we're going to be dealing with that's on this level for the next few years. Especially, I anticipate Jalen Hurts getting a big deal from the Eagles and them trying to max out this window of the next few years. They're going to continue to have really good receivers and offensive line. Their defense has got some nice pieces. So it's one thing when that success is happening to the Rams out west or to the Tampa Bay in the south of the NFC. It's another one in the NFC East, and that's your division. And so maybe that is what will be the thing that pushes them in to be a little bit more aggressive. And then let's be honest, I would think that Mike McCarthy would be pushing for that too, because, they're giving him the play calling, and this is going to be a huge year for him. So if they're not going to be aggressive now, well, when are you going to be?
Looking at the Chiefs and the Eagles both, John, what do you see as the difference between those two teams and the Cowboys? What separates those two being in that spot from Dallas being in that spot?
I'll tell you what, this might seem pretty boring, and I can see many disagreeing with me, but if you could give me those Eagles or Chiefs defensive tackles, I think that would be a major game changer for this Cowboys team. That's one position that they have not made investment in. I guess the biggest investment they probably made is the second round pick with Tristan Hill, and obviously, that was a swing and miss. And Osa Digizua is a nice player, but he's not Chris Jones. It's not the Fletcher Cox, it's not the Aaron Donald. And you just see some of these teams that when they do make that deep run into the Super Bowl, they're really good in the middle of that defense. Now, the Cowboys defense is already outstanding, but if you were to put Chris Jones in the middle of that defense, it's the best defense in football. And you could go from being a team that has to score 30 a game to a team that really you can lean on them, because every game you're going to be in, it should be pretty low scoring. But of course, you watch that game and you see some of the plays that Travis Kelce made and Dallas Goedert made, and you're thinking it'd be great to have one of those tight ends. And then Dalton Schultz is nice, don't get me wrong, and he's going to get paid, but there are those things. But then, let's just be honest. Why did the Chiefs win that Super Bowl? Because they have Superman, they have Michael Jordan, that's Patrick Mahomes, and there's only one of those guys. So it's hard to, it's difficult for me to think that the Cowboys would have gotten to the Super Bowl this year and would have beaten Patrick Mahomes. He's on just another level right now, and until that team starts falling apart around him, and maybe he gets into some lean years, it's going to be tough to beat that dude if he's in the Super Bowl and you're going against him. So there's little things here or there, but I don't think the Cowboys are that far away from those teams.
Yeah, it's frustrating because they get close, but they don't really get close. And they've been in, we know the drought since the Super Bowl 30 team that beat Pittsburgh back in 1995. So if just off the top of your head with what might happen, what's your starting offensive line next year, left tackle to right tackle?
The left guard is my only question mark, because I think that where Tyler Smith is, you want to keep him at left tackle. That's your left tackle of the future. I don't like the idea of putting him at left guard for another year at Tyron Smith, because that means all training camp he's going to be playing left guard, and then the season starts, and we already know what's going to happen. Tyron's not playing all 17 games. And so, okay, so once he gets hurt, then you're going to have to move Tyler Smith out there anyway. I'm putting Tyler Smith as my left tackle, and if I can't re-sign Connor McGovern, that's a position that I could draft as high as 26 and take in the first round to fill that hole, because there is a part of watching those Eagles where you're like, man, if we get back to putting Dak behind an offensive line that looks like that Eagles offensive line that's the best in the NFL, like they had earlier in Dak's career, maybe that makes the difference there, where maybe, it gets him back on track and he gets a little bit more comfortable, because I don't think anything's changing at center. It's Tyler Biadasz, and there's nothing's changing at right guard with Zach Martin, and then right tackle is Terrence Steele. So now Terrence Steele's coming off the knee injury, so, maybe he won't be ready for the beginning of the season. We don't know that yet, but if he isn't, then maybe that's where you have Tyron Smith play over there, or you're going to hope that you develop one of your younger offensive tackles on the, whether you're talking about Matt Waletzko or Josh Ball. And if you don't think either of those guys can be the swing tackle or have that future, then you probably got to draft another offensive tackle, not in the first round, but maybe in the third or fourth. So I think the pieces are there, but there still is a move or two that need to be made. I'd like to bring back Connor McGovern if I was them, but you just don't know what other teams are going to be willing to offer him. But if it's a somewhat team-friendly deal, I would be all in favor of bringing back Connor McGovern at left guard.
John, what do you think is the decision, or when did you think the decision is made on Zeke Elliott?
That's a good question, because Jerry Jones wants Ezekiel Elliott on the team, but it's just a matter of in the next few weeks or so, maybe I would think by Combine at the end of the month, we'll probably have a pretty good idea, especially with just being around Jerry and Steven out at the Combine. So I think we'll know more then at that time. But I'm interested to see where it goes, because I think if most fans had the decision, they would just make just release them from the roster and move on. But when you talk to Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Mike McCarthy, who are ultimately going to be the ones making this decision, I'm telling you, they all love what Zeke is, not just on the field, but as he is in the locker room and what he brings to this team. So it's not as easy as just get rid of him, save some money on the cap, and then give Tony Pollard the franchise tag and move on and draft a running back. Like most fans look at it that way, and ultimately that probably is their best plan of attack, just because of what it would do to the salary cap and save you some money. But I'm not completely convinced, as we sit here today, that they're ready to move on from Ezekiel Elliott.
What do you think his expectations are, John? I know I'm kind of asking you you probably don't know, but I just, knowing the running back position, knowing the spot that he has in Dallas and how comfortable he is there, but also being realistic about who he is. The fact that he's aging in that position is one where, you can look around the league and look at some of the teams on Sunday and see that, they don't have the bell cow guy, so to speak. So what do you think Zeke is expecting in the next go-round of contract talks?
Well, I would start with this. Since I've covered the team, and I can kind of attest to it myself, as being someone that's not from here and growing up in Michigan and moving down here and living here for 12 years, I don't know many Cowboys players that are trying to get out of Dallas. It's a great place to live. If you're into football, this is a great spot to be in. Weather's pretty good, no state taxes. I don't see Zeke trying to get out of Dallas. Especially just the fact of, he comes from being this guy that took Ohio State to a national championship. They obviously have a huge fan base. And then you go get on the Cowboys, and you're one of the faces of the Cowboys. Your best friend is Dak Prescott, the franchise quarterback. He's obviously close with these offensive linemen. He's been around Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. So I look at it as kind of, in a way, like the DeMarcus Lawrence situation last year, where it's, if he wasn't willing to take a pay cut, the Cowboys probably would have moved on from him. Now they did it in a way to where it ended up being kind of an extension too, to add a couple years on, but it took down his yearly salary. So, I get the feeling that Zeke will be willing to take less money and make it work. But I don't think that there's any doubt with what you saw from him this year. He was clearly fine with taking a back seat to Tony Pollard, and it wasn't like this, I need to get my touches, and if I'm not going to get my touches, then I'll get them somewhere else from another team. Right. I think he knows where he's at in his career, and he would prefer to be in Dallas. So I'm sure he's going to be willing to listen to any options that are on the table to try and stay in Dallas. But, hey, let's be honest, it's still a business. If it gets to the point where they're ready to move on, Ezekiel Elliott will find work elsewhere. But if he can stay in Dallas, I'm pretty sure he's going to do everything he can to do that.
Is there something to the effect that Philadelphia, Miles Sanders, a good player, but not a great player? Obviously, Boston Scott's a role player, and then Gainwell just kind of makes plays. Is there something to that that you don't have to have Zeke Elliott. You don't even have to have Tony Pollard. Yeah, it'd be great when you do, but somehow or another, Philadelphia won with 3 guys that were okay that wouldn't start for Dallas.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, you even look over on the other side to Kansas City, and it's not like they have that bell cow back either. So, yeah, by all means, that's where I come from on this. I think that you don't spend significantly at running back. I don't get the feeling that the Cowboys feel the same way, though, because I look at it as, I mean, Kansas City's offensive line was Patrick Mahomes is clearly the MVP of that game, but their offensive line is probably number 2 on that list in terms of the most important things and that helped them win that game. They played outstanding. And then you go to the other side to the Eagles, and I think that clearly the Eagles had the best offensive line in football this year. So when you have that outstanding offensive line, I think it makes it easier to plug in maybe a 3rd-round pick as your starter, and then maybe your backup is an undrafted free agent or is a free agent from another team that, hey, it's kind of at the back end of his career. So you can do some of those things if the offensive line's there. But when the offensive line starts falling apart, that's when all of a sudden it's like, man, you need a better running back. And it's an interesting question because of the fact of, let's be honest, we go into this draft coming up and living in Texas. I mean, everyone's talking about Bijan Robinson. Well, what if he falls to 26 and you're the Cowboys? Are you going to take him? I personally would be looking to address a different position because of running back not being as important nowadays. But I think it's going to be hard. It would be hard for them if they move on from Ezekiel Elliott. Bijan Robinson is sitting there at 26 to draft another position just because of the potential upside that they could have on offense with him. So I just think that everyone's from different schools of thought, but I think where the game's going, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself that, that day of having to pay a running back and trying to find the next Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith, I think teams are just fine trying to find the next Pacheco or Gainwell.
Mm-hmm. I will say this, that if the Cowboys are on the clock and Bijan is still not drafted, they will have to duct tape Jerry Jones into a closet. Steven will have to threaten his, like he tried to do with the Dion contract, for him not to want the glitz, the bells, the whistles of everything that Bijan seems to bring to the table, who's an incredible young man as far as we know as well. Yeah, they would have to, basically cut his arms off to not pick Bijan. Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that if there's a really attractive wide receiver, because then it's another offensive weapon, or let's say Michael Mayer, who most people think is the best tight end in this draft out of Notre Dame. If there's another offensive weapon, maybe you can talk Gary out of it. But what will be interesting is if the consensus in the room is, let's take this guard because this guard can play left guard and also fill in at center. That's going to be hard to talk Jerry out of it.
Cowboys fans might lose their mind with that as well. But John, yeah.
It's going to be one of those things like Roshan Johnson's going to be there, and they're going to draft Osiris Torrance, which is probably, longer term, the guy who's going to be there, who's going to play more for the Cowboys, just based on how long guards versus running backs last. But if they do that, it better be another Zach Martin type deal.
Right. Well, and the thing is that you almost got to give the Cowboys the benefit of the doubt because there's no question over the last 12 years since they drafted Tyron, the best thing they've done is draft offensive linemen in the first round. I mean, yeah, Travis Frederick retired early, but now that we've seen what Tyler Smith is, and there was a lot of questions after they drafted him, it's pretty obvious. The Cowboys know what they're doing when they're taking offensive linemen in the first round.
Thank you, John. As always, great to have you, John Machota, Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. Paul Catalina's Top 5 is coming up next.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get some something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
550.
Split the difference.
By the way, Paxton said it's snowing in the Panhandle in Texas.
It's rather warm here today.
It is supposed to be 81 on Monday.
Yeah.
Supposed to be down to like 40s again this weekend.
Really?
So, yeah.
Right.
Weird. We're a weird state. Top 5 things that will undo the Pac-12. Yesterday, I did the reason I don't think that a Pac-12 collapse is imminent, because I don't. But these are the things that would make it collapse. Number 5, a TV deal that is too heavy on streaming. Because, for the reasons we listed, it's more difficult to watch sports on streaming. It's great to watch movies on streaming. I don't think I watch movies on linear television. I don't watch it on cable, because I can just go and watch it on streaming. But when it comes to watching sports, cable is still better. It's still way better. It's still easier. And the more you spread it out, and while it might be good, maybe numbers-wise, or the best you can do numbers-wise, it's harder for people to find it. Look, Smokey, you know this. If we moved a basketball game from one station to another because of timing or something, we would get 15 phone calls.
Yeah, no.
Because people would be confused.
Like,
or if it was
that's
different.
even knowing that we have, let's say we had 2 frequencies, that if you aren't on one, it's on the other, there would still be confusion.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. And so you're going to confuse viewers. And so you'd want to be on more networks. That doesn't look like it's viable for the Pac-12 right now, but we'll see. And look, they tried to break the mold with their television networks and what they were doing. Had DirecTV agreed that was a good deal, then maybe we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now, but we are. So because we are, if they're going to try to break new ground again, my concern is that they'll find where they were when they try to break new ground with the networks again.
I can see like a Pac-12 game of the week on Amazon being a pull on a Friday night in some respects, but it does leave me questions on how the rest of that schedule that's not being featured on Amazon each week, even if there's 2 games that are featured. Okay, what about the rest? Oh, they're on ESPN, but ESPN what? Like, I mean, ESPN what? Because you're not talking about, like, they're fighting over USC again. No, is it late night still? Is it as unviewable as it is most of the time now? And probably for less money? I mean, that's the questions that I have whenever the Amazon piece is brought up of like, yeah, it was Amazon. Yeah, but you're talking about 1 or 2 games every week. You're not talking about the full schedule. So a feature with, then ESPN floating the rest of the games each week and putting those in prominent positions, I guess you could really make that work, but that doesn't sound like what it's going to be. It doesn't sound like that the rest of the conference is going to end up with like great spots on ESPN's network. So, yeah, I think the deal with streaming is this. Just brought up a little while ago, like first time ever that whatever streaming footage has been watched more than linear TV or traditional TV, and they bring up TikTok and YouTube as examples. With TikTok in particular, that's not talking about sports in any form or fashion.
No.
That's not talking in any way, shape, or form about watching football games. And then on the streaming side of things, you can argue that, like, well, Hulu has live sports, or you maybe watch YouTube TV, you watch live sports. But are they talking about that, or are they talking about all of the Netflix shows and all of the Hulu shows and all those things that you stream and watch on there, like movies, Paul, that you said you don't watch on traditional TV? That's what's doing it. It's not sports that are swinging it wildly in the favor of your streaming channels and Amazon for being the prime example here. So, yeah, I still feel like if you're a sports organization or a team or a conference, you want your stuff on ABC, ESPN, NBC, CBS, like the main channels that we all know and love. And then the rest of it, yeah, that's all heading streaming. But live sports is live sports, and that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. You want...
Yeah, because if I see something, like what was the Thursday night game? Was that on Amazon?
Yeah.
And I know how to get that, but it was like, it almost like brain locked me. And that's not because I'm an older generation guy. It's just kind of like, damn, I just want to turn it on, and it's right there in front of me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But look, Smoky, you're not the only person who feels this way. Like there would be times where you have a discussion like this where you say I'm an older guy and you're like, yeah, well, they're not doing this for you. It's not just people your age. It's people probably of my age and Craig's age and maybe even a little younger that are like,
Which is kind of insane, really, because it's not that complicated. Like but I know it's different. I understand that it's different.
It's almost like when I had to learn how to use a cell phone.
I know. I'm just saying, like hitting input twice and getting to. I mean, it's not that difficult, but I understand that it is for some people, or it's just a hassle. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It doesn't take more than 20 seconds, but you just don't want to do it when you can just go up, down on the channels on cable.
We want things immediately.
I can tell you one of the most knockdown, drag out arguments that I've ever had with my superiors at an office was when I ran the website at our old radio station, and this is something I had to cope with and deal with and figure out ways to make it better, was we had something on our page, but I had to put it below the fold, which meant that you had to scroll down to get it. And Smokey would get an email every week like, I don't see this on the page. And so he went and he goes, why isn't this on the page? I went, just scroll your mouse down, man. And we had a knockdown, drag out argument. And then it finally occurred to me is like, you know what? I'm going to have to figure out a way to do this because I cannot convince him to do this. Like, that was all. But he wasn't the only one. He was getting emails about it. So, again, you got to make it simple or Americans
here's always been and I know that people disagree with me on this, and I know we disagree on this at times just because, like our website, if somebody's a customer and it may be one person, you should still try to help solve how they find what they're looking for.
Yeah, I should have felt that way if it was like one guy like, I want to scroll. Like, all right, buddy, please, make an effort. But anyway, if it's 10 people, then you've got an issue, right? And so that's where it is. Number 4, infighting. I don't know how true, like you hear about rumors that this school and this school is mad about this and mad about that. I don't know how true any of that is. But if it is, those are the things that will eventually, over the long term, hurt you. It took the Big 12 a decade of infighting before it really undid itself. I don't know how long the Pac-12 would really have had any infighting, but it's maybe in the genesis stages if that would be happening, which means that maybe not this one, maybe the next one, but in the future, they might be kind of over each other and moving on, and maybe for petty reasons, or maybe for reasons because, the Pac-12 is the conference with the most amount of different schools. Everybody's kind of different. in that regard. Or they have little pockets of they're the same, they're the same, they're the same, they're the same, but none of them are all the same, all 10 of them.
The SEC ever been through any infighting?
I mean, not that we know of, sure, but yeah.
But like public.
No.
Yeah, there's been like public spats that have gone there, but eventually what happens is the commissioner puts his foot down and says, both y'all shut up and go behind the scenes and we'll deal with it.
You didn't do when Slive was there, they wanted to make sure if they ever did get public, he would hammer them, and just like Sankey would do. Now, the Big 12, when they had BB, and then, of course, with Bob Bowlesby, even though what he did was good to get the 4 in, they've had public spats and disagreements. It's been sloppy. The Pac-12 so far kind of seems to have avoided that.
I don't know that there's really a lot of aggressive people in the Pac-12, though, that would be like a Lane Kiffin-led Ole Miss team that's quick to just pop off at the mouth anytime they don't feel they're getting the right end of the stick. You know, like I think there's not that they're meek or anything like that. I just think that it's a different attitude out there, and it's not as in your face, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, who knows if there's any infighting going on? Certainly not, speculating or reporting that there is, but that could definitely come into play if those money figures aren't, what people want to see at the end of the day.
Yeah. Number 3, SMU and San Diego State not bringing what they need. We'll see. I mean, I think those are fine additions. I think they'd be fine additions for the Big 12 if they wanted to do it, although I prefer San Diego State to SMU just based on the expanse if I'm the Big 12. But if that move doesn't work out the way that they want it to, then that would cause maybe a little bit more scuffling when it comes to let's go somewhere else. Or if there's schools in there that really just don't like the idea of those two schools.
There probably might be. Go ahead, Craig.
I mean, they got to agree to let them in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not going to have a problem with it at the outset if they're in the conference, because without the schools approving it, they're not in the conference. So, what are their expectations for these two, up until this point, non-Power 5 schools? We know the argument with SMU and Dallas. I understand that there's the whole sleeping giant argument, and that's what the Pac-12 is banking on, and the same thing with San Diego State. But, again, if you're on Amazon and whatever, I guess it's going to be ESPN, just having, I mean, 2 more teams is apparently, they want more inventory, but who's wanting more inventory? Well, basically nobody left standing except for Amazon and ESPN, unless there's somebody that we're not thinking about or that hasn't been reported on. So they want the extra inventory. Those teams are ready to make the leap. I think it could work out really well. But again, where are we watching all these games, and do they help change that we're watching these games on different platforms? Like, do they help bump the Pac-12 to a different level of exposure that they otherwise wouldn't have had, or another level of monetary value that they otherwise wouldn't have had? It's hard for me to imagine that unless the offers rolling in right now are so low that, yes, by adding SMU and San Diego State, that opens up all of these other opportunities that you're getting back to closer to where you were pre-LA school departures, but that remains to be seen.
What do you? They need 8 of 10 to approve somebody coming in? I wonder if...
I don't know the exact Pac-12 guidelines.
Well, let's say it's 8 of 10. Do you think 8 of 10 will approve those 2?
I think so. I think at this
point.
Well,
now you're without USC and UCLA.
What choices are they facing?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the option if they don't? We don't know that.
That's
the thing.
And I get that. You're right. That's exactly right. But you just sometimes, based on the way the air about some of them, that still seems like that would be like having to eat something they don't want to eat.
No, that would be UNLV and BYU and those schools. I mean, I think SMU is very much the Pac-12 type of school that if you were to dip into Texas, outside of Texas, that you would probably be looking for. And San Diego State, I mean, again, it's all about what they could be, not necessarily what they are right now. So I'm sure there's some pride that's having to be swallowed for some uppity folks out there that otherwise feel like they're above that. But guess what? That uppity attitude's got you kind of in the place that you are right now, where you don't really have a choice, to where you might be begging SMU and San Diego State to come and save the day for you in these TV negotiations, if in fact they make that much of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, the different goals of all 10 schools. This is what I was talking about before, and I'm gonna keep hitting this home. The Pac-12 is unique in that all the SEC schools, all 16 new SEC schools, all 12 Big 12 schools, all the Big 10, all of the ACC, really. And the ACC kind of remains to be seen. They can't really say much because what does it matter? It'd be like, man, it'd be great if I won the lottery. Well, I can keep playing, and if I do, I do, but more than likely I'm not going to. But Arizona and Arizona State and the 4, Utah and Colorado are all kind of different. They're in like a little pocket here. Washington State and Oregon State are. Washington and Oregon are. Maybe even Washington, Stanford, and Cal are, and Oregon might be kind of somewhere on its own based on how things are. So nobody's got kind of the same maybe long-term goals as they might have, which probably makes it difficult to figure out who you want to be 10 years from now.
I don't even think that Utah is really in that pocket with the Arizona schools at all.
I think
they're probably more like Colorado. And I think even based on yesterday, what was that? Maybe, it was yesterday with Matt Rhodes, that just because Arizona State might be interested doesn't mean Arizona is, or vice versa. Doesn't mean you take both Arizona schools like it's some sort of a package deal. So, I think that my encounter with average Utah fan is they want nothing to do with the Big 12. They're above it. They're better than that.
And they don't want to be in the league with BYU.
They don't want to be in a league with BYU. Right. So they're over it. Colorado, I think there's some element of like having to come walking back to the Big 12 after you left years ago.
I can see that.
And you're worse for wear than when you left. Maybe not money-wise, but they're not better, on the surface, athletically, that I've seen in any way than when they left the Big 12. They're worse, if anything.
Not many teams that have left the Big 12 are, and they're one of them.
A&M's richer.
They're more,
they're more stable. But that's not the argument, is it? It's if you want to talk about stability and financially, but as far as competitively, no, I wouldn't say that they are. But there's definitely some lines in the sand. I just don't know how firm those lines are.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 1,
I like the Sun Devil.
The Big Ten. The Big Ten comes calling, then that's what can break it up. But since it's not going to, since the big bad wolf is asleep right now, I think we can.
The big bad wolf is in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. The big bad wolf's gone. He's not going to huff and puff and blow your house down right now.
Wouldn't you love to have been behind the scenes when that announcement, or he made the announcement of what everyone's like, okay, good, we don't have to deal with all that other crap on the West Coast. We have what we want. We can move on.
Yeah.
Or is there someone else, Kevin Warren, too, that wants to go gobble up more?
I don't know. Wayne Gerbach asked me on the chat room who the Big Ten commissioner candidates are, and there's several.
They don't have a commissioner.
They don't have a commissioner right now, so we don't know. But it appears that the presidents would like a commissioner that's maybe a different form of aggressive than Kevin Warren right now. And I do think a lot of this was probably born out of the fact that during COVID, the college athletics world was clowning on Kevin Warren, and he said, all right, make fun of me all you want. Here's what I'm about to do. I'm about to change this whole thing forever and then leave and go make more money. That's what Kevin Warren did. And you want to talk about, up off the mat. So it depends. But I think if the Big Ten, as long as the Big Ten stays, happy with where they are right now.
Why would they not be happy?
Exactly. Like what, and Alexander wept because there were no more worlds left to conquer. That's kind of where they are at the Big Ten. So why would they not be happy? They're fine. They can stay and see how it goes. And then if there's opportunity, they've only got 6-year TV deal. So 5 years from now, if they're like, oh man, there's more money that we can Scrooge McDuck our asses into, then they will. But I just don't think that's today.
Well, and let's give them a couple years of flying out to L.A. and seeing how that goes and how excited they are about that. They may be begging for Washington and Oregon to come join just to take some off their plate travel-wise. Or they may say, you know what, no, this is perfect the way that it is. We don't need to go out west even more than we already are. It's already enough of a pain. So, I think that they probably need to trial balloon this thing for a little while, which we got another year to wait, but only one more year. But, no idea without knowing who the commissioner is, what direction that they may go. So that does remain a mystery, but it does feel like, at least for right now, they're staying pat. But as you mentioned, it's a short TV deal, so everything could erupt again with the timing of these contracts again in 5 or so years. And that's what makes these next 5 very, very interesting.
All right. Thank you, everyone. The text line, not a lot on there today, at least the last time I checked, and I try to check throughout the show. Obviously, thanks to everybody in the chat room today, all of you who viewed us, listened to us, joined us. We appreciate that very much. Also, thanks to our sponsors who back in April 6th of 2020 joined us, and those who have joined us since then, we appreciate them so much, the legacy sponsors, and also everyone else along the way. Garrett Ross back with us. Emery Winter will be placing all of the various segments he does for Sports Tonight at 10:30 tonight on the CW channel. And obviously for Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for being a part of what we are as a family. This is 365 Sports, and good night.